16-year-old Sarah Yarborough is being remembered as talented, creative, and kind.
Sarah was an A student at the high school.
Whenever you saw Sarah, she always had a smile.
This case is about a 16-year-old girl who had the right to grow up. This case is about Sarah and everything that she should have been allowed to become.
It was Friday the 13th in December of 1991. Her parents were out of town for her brother's soccer game. She stayed home.
I was reluctant to leave Sarah. She didn't want to come, of course, because she had her whole weekend planned out. So she had a friend come over and stay with her that weekend.
We went to a basketball game, went and got junk food at the grocery store, a little bit of fast food. You know, we're 16, we were carefree. There was absolutely nothing that would make any of us think that the next morning everything would change.
So Saturday morning, Sarah woke up kind of in a panic.
She woke up and said, "I'm late for practice."
She put on her drill team uniform and ran out the door.
She went to the school and discovered that she was early. So she parked in her car and waited for the rest of her team to show up.
Shortly after the phone call started, "Where's Sarah? Do you know where she is?"
Sarah was found within an hour.
Where was her body discovered?
So her car was still in the parking lot. Her body was approximately 100 yards away, still on the school property. Part of her clothing was removed. She had nylon stockings tied in a ligature around her neck.
I just remember just saying, "Not Sarah, not Sarah, not Sarah," over and over again.
The suspect is a white male, 6 feet tall, with a medium build.
They had DNA evidence, they had everything. They had witnesses.
In that first week or so, it sounded like they had so much evidence. You know, for at least a short while, it felt like,
Of course they're
going to catch him. And then when they didn't, your expectations change.
You don't know if it's your next door neighbor. You don't know if it's some random stranger. There was that constant fear of, is this going to happen again?
We literally had a monster in the community, and we didn't know who it was.
How often do you think about December 14th, 1991, and what happened on that day?
Quite a bit. It's a very traumatic thing to go through.
It's been over 30 years, but the details of that day have never faded for Drew Miller.
I had my friend spent the night at my house. We woke up that morning, watched cartoons, ate cereal, left to go skateboarding.
Drew, who was just 13 at the time, lived down the street from Federal Way High School near Seattle, Washington.
The school grounds have changed quite a bit, right?
Drastically, yes. The tennis court's the only thing that's still here.
Drew often took shortcuts through the school to go skateboarding, as he and his friend did that day.
We used to hop the fence right here and cut through here. It was freezing cold that day. I mean, there was ice in all of the mud puddles. We just, started smashing them because it's fun. It sounds like breaking glass.
That's when Drew says they noticed a man in the bushes.
Right where you see the edge of this dugout right here, that was all bushes that were probably this tall. So we couldn't see him until he stood up. He's just staring at us from the bushes. That was pretty jarring, but then he just walked out of the bushes. So then we just assumed he's just smoking weed or something.
The mysterious man kept to himself and walked ahead of the boys. Drew says they didn't think much of it until they came across a horrendous scene. There in the bushes, where the man had just been, was the body of a young woman.
It was horrible, absolutely horrible. The way that he left her body, she clearly fought for her life.
Drew says his shock turned to fear when he realized the man, who was still just feet in front of them, was now staring directly back at him.
Does that look still haunt you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's frozen in my mind.
The boogeyman, then?
Legitimate boogeyman.
The boys raced to Drew's house, and police were called to the scene.
When we approached the victim, on one of the pieces of clothing, we saw the name Sarah.
Detective Scott Strathy with the King County Sheriff's Office was one of the first officers on the scene.
And of course, later we found out that that was Sarah Yarborough. Even for experienced investigators, this scene was really hard to deal with. Just the innocent nature of this young woman in her school drill team uniform, with her hot curlers still in her hair. This was just pure, unadulterated evil.
Investigators believed this was a sexually motivated murder.
She was partially clothed. Her jacket, her undergarments, her bra had been removed and placed next to her body.
Police discovered that the car Sarah had driven that morning was parked in the school parking lot, about 300 feet from where her body was found.
There didn't really appear to be any sort of a struggle in the car itself.
Detective John Free with the King County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit would later join the investigation.
She had a container of orange juice that she had made that morning. It was just sitting in the front seat. Nothing was tipped over. So the question was, how did she get from her car to this hill? What led her there?
Sarah was one of these people that would help anyone with anything at any time. And part of our working theory was she coaxed into following, the suspect? Did he say something like, I'm looking for my lost dog, or I can't find my car keys? Perhaps Sarah, in an attempt to assist this person, may have followed him to that area.
Tell me about this one.
That was less than a week, I think, before she died. I said, could I take your picture? Because your great-grandma really wants a picture of you in your drill team outfit. She goes, okay. It was just too incredible to believe that it could even happen.
Sarah's parents, Laura and Tom Yarborough.
I mean, who thinks that your daughter's going to be murdered?
Tom and Laura had the excruciating task of having to tell their two sons the tragic news. Sarah's youngest brother, Andrew, was just 11 years old at the time.
At that age, you probably never seen or heard your parents cry much, but that pain in the voice is very, very vivid.
Sarah, who had just started her junior year in high school, had big plans for her future, starting with college.
She didn't want to go to a state school. She wanted to go to a school far away. She loved to travel.
I actually would hear her say, I can't decide if I want to be a museum curator or an engineer like my father.
Yep.
And I was always rooting for the museum curator.
Liberty Barnes, Christy Gutierrez, Amy Perotti, and Mary Beth Tomey were some of Sarah's closest friends.
So this was after the last day of 10th grade, when we're just kind of goofing around afterwards. And that totally, you can see there's Sarah right in the middle of it, just being goofy.
The fiery red hair. Was that her personality?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
She was artistic, she was creative, she was smart, she was feisty.
Imaginative.
All of those things.
She would be the last one to wait for someone. Always be there with a smile. She would help with homework. It was her ultimate kindness.
After Sarah was ripped from their lives, they say their sense of safety was gone forever.
You grow up getting all the safety conversations with your parents, and bad things can happen, and it's all this sort of like vague possibility out there, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, 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 it can really happen. Yeah. It really did just happen.
It was all hands on deck. The sheriff's office put everything they had into solving this case as soon as they could.
And the killer left behind important evidence. Sarah had not been raped, but the killer's DNA was found on pieces of her clothing.
There was semen found on her underwear and on her jacket. We had a full male DNA profile.
DNA technology was new back in 1991, but investigators hoped that DNA would someday lead them to Sarah's killer. In the meantime, they had eyewitnesses.
I thought for sure somebody would know him.
Drew and his friend who was with him the morning they found Sarah's body worked with police, and a sketch of the man they saw in the bushes was released to the public. Police would later release a more elaborate sketch.
I very vividly remember going through yearbooks going, okay, who looks like this sketch? Everyone, it felt like at one point was a suspect.
But as days went by and as leads dried up, police kept coming back to Drew and his friend.
They just made me feel like I was the only person that could help them solve this. I know that wasn't the intent. Like, you know, the officers are just doing their best.
How much pressure were you feeling?
It's unimaginable pressure.
And despite everyone's best efforts, it would take years to find Sarah's killer.
This case was never forgotten.
In early June of 1993, 1.5 years after Sarah Yarbrough's murder, local media were there as students gathered in the courtyard of Federal Way High School to honor her.
Bill Fuller, a family friend who helped spearhead the move for a memorial to remember Sarah, unveiled it with help from Sarah's younger brother, Andrew.
It was quite a day. A lot of tears as they looked at it and could see Sarah in that bench.
Bill Fuller has known the Yarbroughs for years, and his daughter was in Sarah's class.
Sarah was fun to be around. That was probably what we missed the most, is she was fun to be around.
The bench reads Carpe Diem, seize the day, a mantra Sarah lived by. Encased in bronze are some of her favorite possessions, ballet shoes, a replica of Sarah's beloved dog Gibby, and books.
Nice that people cared about her so much.
Andrew Yarbrough, now an adult, admits that he struggled as a young teenager. It was especially difficult to see those sketches around town of the man police believed murdered his sister.
You know, there was drawings of the person's face all over in businesses in town. You know, I do recall that quite a bit, just having that kind of a constant reminder.
Looking back, I feel like we didn't do a very good job with the boys. I think that we were so consumed by our own grief that we didn't take time to help them.
I think we didn't really know how to help them. I mean, it wasn't something we had experience with. We didn't know anything about grieving ourselves or how to help them through it.
And they weren't alone in their grief. Shannon Grant, the last friend to see Sarah alive, says she lived with constant regret.
I wish we could go back and do it all over again. That I would have asked the other drill team members what time practice was, you know, maybe dropped her off. I mean, there's a lot of the what ifs.
The milestones were especially painful.
There was survivor guilt. Like, why am I filling out my college applications when Sarah wanted to go to college? This isn't fair.
Every joyful occasion had this sorrow that went with it. That was, there's one missing from the crowd here.
Graduation day, June 12, 1993, was an emotional day, but even more so since it fell on what would have been Sarah's 18th birthday. Laura Yarbrough came to support her daughter's friends.
I do not know where she found the strength to do that.
She loved that green dress, right? Yeah, she wore green quite a bit with her hair.
Laura Yarbrough says Sarah's friends helped ease her grief somewhat, and she thinks she filled the void for them as well.
Sometimes they would say, well, I'm going to date this person, and I just wanted to let you know because I wasn't sure if Sarah would approve of this person.
So they would seek approval through you. You became sort of their surrogate.
Yes.
As life slowly moved forward, investigators kept working the case.
I describe it as like a relay race where the baton was handed off from one detective to the next over the years and decades. I kind of refer to myself as the fifth Beatle in this investigation.
By the early 2000s, investigators had received over 3,000 leads, and advances in technology made them hopeful. They entered the DNA from the crime scene into the recently established CODIS system, a national DNA database that includes profiles of convicted offenders.
The strategy was to continually try to see if there would ever be a match while also investigating leads.
But over time, there appeared to be no match.
For us to have DNA evidence from the suspect but not have that linked to anybody, it just didn't make sense. It seemed hard to believe that the suspect hadn't committed any other prior crimes where his DNA wouldn't be in the system.
That's when he says detectives realized they had to go in a different direction.
My name's Colleen Fitzpatrick, and I'm one of the pioneers of forensic genetic genealogy.
In 2011, investigators reached out to Fitzpatrick to inquire about using forensic genetic genealogy, the practice of using software to compare unknown DNA profiles to information from public DNA databases and searching family trees to identify suspects. Genetic genealogy is well known now and has been used to solve numerous cold cases, but at that time, it was in its infancy.
When I started in this field, it didn't exist.
Fitzpatrick says most police agencies had been skeptical of this new investigative tool.
The police thought I was crazy, you know, this little old lady with a crazy idea, and I was actually almost laughed out the room.
But the King County Sheriff's Office took a chance on Fitzpatrick.
It was for free. I just wanted to see if it worked. What are you going to lose if you try something?
The Yarbroughs were encouraged.
I think it wasn't until we met Colleen Fitzpatrick that I really began to think, oh, you know, they're going to find this person.
And it didn't take long before Fitzpatrick came up with the name of a possible suspect that surprised just about everyone.
Everyone went, no way.
From the beginning, it was very promising. And the story took some really bizarre twists.
In 2011, 20 years after Sarah's murder, when forensic genetic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick started working the Yarbrough case, she traced Sarah's killer's family tree back to a man named Robert Fuller, whose family had come to America on the Mayflower.
I found numerous matches to the name Fuller.
When Fitzpatrick gave the name Fuller to the King County Sheriff's Office, they immediately knew of one person with that last name. Bill Fuller, the Yarbrough's close family friend, who helped get that memorial bench built for Sarah.
Naturally, that piqued our interest.
From the beginning, Sarah's family and friends believe Bill Fuller had nothing to do with Sarah's murder.
He didn't look at all like the suspect. The wrong hair color, he's short, he's not tall. He just didn't fit the profile at all.
Fuller's age didn't match the profile either. He's 79 years old now, but was 48 years old at the time of Sarah's murder, at least 2 decades older than the man Drew Miller described.
There was no way that I could be even remotely connected to the case.
He fully cooperated with police and voluntarily gave them a DNA sample. It didn't match the DNA found at Sarah's crime scene. Yet Fitzpatrick remained optimistic.
The good news is that we came up with a possible last name to investigate, and this was the first break in the case in 20 years.
Fitzpatrick knew that Sarah's killer was in the Fuller family tree somewhere, so she and her team went back to work. And as the years went by, she knew she was only getting closer, especially after 2018, when forensic genetic genealogy was used to identify the Golden State Killer.
Golden State Killer really started the big revolution. Things had evolved that we had the data to work with. The technology was in place that we could go for it.
Then in September of 2019, Fitzpatrick's team made a breakthrough. They came up with 2 new possible suspects, brothers Edward and Patrick Nicholas, who, as the DNA showed, were distant cousins of Bill Fuller.
You know, this is 8 years of on and off and looking at it, never giving up. This is it. This is exciting.
Edward Nicholas was a registered sex offender. His DNA was in the system, it was in CODIS.
But Edward's DNA wasn't a match, so they zeroed in on his brother Patrick, who in 2019 was a divorced loner who lived a couple of towns away from Federal Way.
We learned that he was working at an auto parts store, lived alone, no children, no friends or acquaintances that would even visit him. Everything that he did was mostly by bus. He wasn't driving.
Detective Ree says he discovered that when Sarah was murdered, the bus route Nicholas often took happened to go past Federal Way High School. Back then, Nicholas was just 27 years old, and around that time looked very much like the description of the sketch.
It looked promising at that point, but we still needed to get a DNA sample from him to match up to the DNA evidence that we had.
So in late September 2019, investigators came up with a plan.
We assigned a team of undercover detectives to start doing surveillance on Patrick Nicholas in the hopes of obtaining a surreptitious DNA sample.
Eventually, undercover detectives followed Nicholas to a laundromat.
They saw him go outside and smoke a cigarette, and Patrick Nicholas was seen throwing the cigarette butt on the ground. That was collected by our detectives.
That's what you needed.
Yes.
Right there, that cigarette butt.
Yes. Actually, he dropped 2 cigarette butts and a napkin that fell out of his pocket, and all 3 items were collected.
The DNA samples were rushed to the crime lab, and within days, detectives received the call they had been waiting for.
The DNA matched. This was our suspect.
Perfect match.
Yes.
Patrick Nicholas was arrested.
There were so many suspects over the years. Was Patrick Leon Nicholas ever named as a suspect?
Out of 4,000 tips, he was never named.
I was pretty in shock.
The news was a relief for Sarah's family and friends, who had never given up hope that they would get answers.
One thing the detectives kept telling us was, eventually technology is going to solve this case. I trusted that, and they turned out that they were right.
And I remember going out to my car and bawling, just bawling. Finally, they got him.
When Drew Miller, who had seen Sarah's killer back in 1991, saw Patrick Nicholas's face, he says he knew they had the right person.
What did he look like?
The same guy, just older. Just the same evil
face.
eyes. Those evil eyes stayed the same.
All these years later.
Yeah.
But it was not over yet.
Why do you think you're here? I have no clue.
During his interrogation,
Who are you in charge for?
when detectives specifically asked him about Sarah's murder, he gave an alarming response.
What we're investigating is the death of a young girl. Her name's Sarah Yarborough.
Interestingly, he asked what year this was, and that really sent up a flag.
Why?
Why would you ask that? He's being told this is a murder case. We're wondering at this point, are there other victims?
This is it. I'm not going to say anything.
After 1.5 hours, Nicholas asked for an attorney and stopped talking. But his criminal record would speak volumes.
I am the one that got away.
On a quiet morning in June 1983, 8 years before Sarah's murder, 21-year-old Ann Croney was sitting by her car along the Columbia River in Richland, Washington, when a man approached her.
He seemed normal, kind of friendly, actually, just friendly. I had asked him if he'd done any water skiing yet, because he said he had just moved to town, and he said he couldn't swim. And he said, "My name is Pat Nicholas."
After a few minutes of small talk, she became uncomfortable.
I noticed his voice was getting shaky, and I told him I had to go. I went to close the door, and he put a knife to my throat. Everything kind of stopped at that moment. He told me to take my clothes off.
Nicholas stuffed Ann's underwear into her mouth to prevent her from screaming, forced her out of the car, and led her to the riverbank.
We got about halfway down the bank, and he told me to stop. I ran and dove in the river because I was thinking he couldn't swim. Swam as hard as I could.
Swam for your life.
I swam for my life.
Passers-by found Ann at a dock nearby and called police. As it turns out, 19-year-old Patrick Nicholas was no stranger to law enforcement and had a record. He had raped 2 women and attempted to rape a third.
He'd been convicted of rape as a juvenile and had actually only just been out for a few months when he attacked me.
Days after Ann's attack, he was tracked down, arrested, and pled guilty to attempted rape. He told authorities, "I realize that I have a problem concerning raping girls." At his sentencing hearing, Ann spoke out.
I was actually very angry and asked the judge for the maximum sentence. And the judge did agree and sentenced him to 10 years. So I thought it was over. I thought that justice had been served.
But Patrick Nicholas did not serve the full 10 years in prison. He was released after just 3.5 years. Ann was never notified. She barely thought of him again until October 2019.
The police knocked on my door and said that there were detectives in Seattle that wanted to talk to me about a cold case.
They informed Ann that Patrick Nicholas had been arrested again, this time for the murder of Sarah Yarborough.
They told me that there were similarities in the cases, and I was crushed. It had never occurred to me that what I escaped from was a murder.
What's more, if Nicholas had served his full prison sentence, he would have still been behind bars that December morning in 1991, unable to murder Sarah Yarborough.
How angry are you to hear that he was released that early? And
Very. It brought up a lot of the old anger and even more anger because the system failed.
King County Deputy Prosecuting Attorneys Celia Lee and Mary Barbosa describe him as a serial predator with a clear pattern.
All of the women were approached at or near their car. He would strike up conversation and then pull a knife and tell them that they needed to walk, where he would order them to take off their clothes and then rape them.
Nicholas had also been convicted of sexually assaulting a minor in 1994, 3 years after Sarah's murder. 5 sexual assaults that investigators knew of, none of which had required him to submit his DNA, so there was no record of him in the CODIS database. But in pretrial hearings, the judge ruled that Nicholas's criminal history could not be entered in as evidence.
She found that it would be unfairly prejudicial to the defendant.
But the prosecutors were hopeful their case was strong enough.
All rise for the jury.
In early 2023, more than 30 years after Sarah Yarborough's murder, her accused killer, now 59 years old, went on trial. Sarah's childhood friends were there.
I so clearly remember the morning before the trial started just going, I don't know if I can do this. Like, you know, I had so many different emotions flowing through, and it was like, no, we need to be there.
There was this absolute love for Sarah and the Yarboroughs that was so strong.
Did you feel like they were a lifeline for you?
Yeah.
Be seated.
You weren't in it alone. You were all in it together.
As the trial got underway, the focus was on the DNA.
What was your strategy then in trying this case?
Well, we needed them to trust the science.
There was a field that was emerging called forensic genetic genealogy.
Patrick Nicholas's public defender, David Montez, challenged how forensic genetic genealogy was used to first identify Nicholas.
I want to dig into the science because
The first time that kind of defense had been used in Washington state.
they use technology that is not only unproven, but just wacky, really. He's not the person that killed Sarah. The police needed an answer more than they needed the right answer. And so they turned to new, novel, untested technology. Genetic genealogy is a new field. It really hasn't been tested out. Should we be making important decisions based on something that is not well or deeply understood?
But the prosecutors said that argument was moot because Patrick Nicholas's DNA matched the DNA found at the Yarborough crime scene. And Detective Free says the numbers were astronomical.
The odds were 1 in 120 quadrillion that...
Quadrillion, yeah.
Right, that it was somebody else.
If the numbers pointed to Nicholas's guilt, law enforcement says so did evidence found at his house near the time of his arrest in 2019.
It was almost like a lair. There was no working electricity at this house, stacks of pornography all throughout the place. We also found a newspaper from 1994 that had on its front page an article about the Sarah Yarborough case. And going through one of the kitchen drawers, we found a torn photograph taken from a magazine, a woman in a cheerleading outfit.
When the prosecutors showed that photo in the courtroom, the oxygen left the room.
Yeah.
Montez downplayed their significance.
I think both of those pieces of evidence were not especially strange given the general state of his house. There were stacks and stacks of newspapers all over his house.
This is evidence tape.
Patrick Nicholas didn't flinch as the evidence was shown, showing no emotion throughout the trial. But Sarah Yarborough's presence was felt, especially when now retired Captain Scott Strathy carefully unpackaged and displayed Sarah's clothing that had been in storage for over 30 years. Her drill team jacket, shoes, sweater, even her nylon stockings.
This was like opening a time capsule.
All of a sudden, they were real things. They weren't even photographs. They were the things she had on her body when she died. You sort of felt yourself crumble.
After 9 long days of testimony, the case went to the jury.
All eyes for the jury.
It took them just over a day to reach a verdict.
I was shaking, and like just that, like there was so much adrenaline and so much anticipation.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Patrick Leon Nicholas.
Everything just dropped, and it's like, what?
Why do you think it took law enforcement so long to identify Patrick Nicholas as a suspect? Take a look at a timeline of the case at 48hours.com.
The
This is the state of Washington versus Patrick Leon Nicholas.
Sarah Yarbrough's loved ones had waited over 30 years for this moment.
We, the jury, find the defendant,
But then,
Patrick Leon
shock.
Nicholas, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree, premeditated.
Patrick Nicholas was found not guilty of the first charge, premeditated first-degree murder.
I remember dropping my head to my hands. I was angry, I was in disbelief.
When that first one came in not guilty, I closed my eyes.
But there were other charges, and there was still hope of a conviction.
Guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree, guilty in the second degree.
Patrick Nicholas was found guilty of first-degree murder and second-degree murder. The jury ruled both had been committed with a sexual motivation.
I remember hearing the family behind me cry, and I made eye contact with the jurors and nodded at them. You know, they got it right.
I feel so grateful for those detectives, for the boys, for the previous victims, for every witness who took the stand. So grateful that all these people came together.
2 weeks after Nicholas's conviction, dozens of people who had been involved in every part of Sarah's case gathered back at the courthouse for his sentencing hearing. Prosecutors asked the judge to impose extra time to take into account all of Nicholas's crimes.
The sentencing hearing was exhilarating in a way that I never expected. It was probably the most raw human courage I have ever seen in my life.
Sarah's death left our family broken, and we've never been the same.
The pain in my father's voice over the phone telling me Sarah was dead.
Person after person took to the podium to say all that Patrick Nicholas had taken from them.
Coming face to face with pure evil that day has deeply impacted my entire life.
He took her life and what was sure to be a brilliant future from her. In taking Sarah, he took the innocence of every one of us.
To face Patrick Nicholas and to say what they had been wanting to say to his face for 30 years.
Patrick Nicholas is pure evil.
There was so much power in the room. It was electric.
And then Ann Croney, who wasn't allowed to testify at Sarah's trial, started speaking.
He just did like a double take and shuddered when Ann stood up.
Like he saw a ghost.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure he didn't expect to ever see my face or hear my name ever again.
We rely on a system of justice that is designed to protect us from predators like Nicholas. And this system failed me, it failed Sarah, her family, friends, and countless others. I ask the court to please not make the same mistake.
After everyone spoke, Judge Josephine Wiggs addressed the court.
When I think about this poor child, and what she experienced fighting for her life.
Judge Wiggs put her fist on the thing and said, "This was a child." She kept saying that, and all I could think was,
oh my gosh.
That's right. We were children.
Yep.
Nicholas received a sentence of almost 46 years. For Sarah's family and friends, the sentence brought mixed emotions.
I don't know that this is justice. It is a verdict, and it is putting someone away for something that they did. But he got 30 years that she didn't get.
It makes me mad that he was free for so many years, and who knows, however many other people were hurt during that time. I don't know that we'll ever know, and that could have been avoided.
Forensic genetic genealogy helped solve Sarah's case, but prosecutors say similar technology could have identified Patrick Nicholas years earlier if only familial DNA searches were allowed in Washington state. In a familial DNA search, an unknown DNA sample is compared against profiles already in CODIS to search for possible family members. Remember, Patrick Nicholas's brother's DNA had been in CODIS for years.
The legislation just doesn't exist in this state to allow that search.
California uses it. the UK, as I understand.
New York, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Colorado, Florida.
Do you think it's time to get that law changed?
We do.
Me too.
The Yarboroughs agree and hope that Sarah's case can make a difference.
I would like to know that other parents don't have to wait 30 years.
What do you hope her legacy is?
I think her legacy is she was always someone who brought people together. She's brought all the people together that attended the trial. And that's the kind of person she was.
For Drew Miller, who at 13 found Sarah's body, the connections made at trial finally brought him some peace.
Knowing he's in prison is fantastic, but knowing her family and friends is way more important to me, because that's what's given me the actual healing that I needed.
This is probably the beginning of our junior year.
Sarah's friends will always remain bonded by the past and Sarah's stolen future.
Not only was she beautiful, her soul was beautiful, and the grace and the beauty that she carried and left with all of us, we won't forget her. We will never forget her.
New CBS Next.
He's not breathing.
A surgeon's girlfriend found dead.
He provided those drugs.
Was this a case of a controlling doctor's depravity?
This was not just some simple accident. This was much more.
A new 48 Hours, next on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
And can you start by telling me your name and who you are?
Sure. I'm Ann Croney, and I'm the one that got away from Patrick Nicholas. Got away alive and safe.
That's Ann Croney, a remarkable woman who survived an attempted attack by Patrick Nicholas back in 1983 when she was just 21 years old. I met Ann while reporting on the story of Sarah Yarbrough, another young woman attacked by Nicholas 8 years later. Tragically, Sarah died. I'm Natalie Morales of 48 Hours. Now, so much of our work at 48 Hours focuses on the stories of victims who didn't survive. But what about those like Ann, who lived to tell? From 48 Hours, this is It Could Have Been Me. And today I'm joined by 48 Hours field producer Lauren Clark. And Lauren, we're here to talk about Ann Croney's story. But before we do, I think it's important that people understand the case of Sarah Yarbrough.
Yeah, so Sarah she was a 16-year-old girl living in kind of the suburbs of Seattle back in 1991. When she was found strangled on her high school campus. It was a horrible case for the people of the community. It was a December day. It seems she had missed the time for a drill team practice. She had thought she had to get there early, but the rest of the team wasn't arriving for another hour or so. So she had pulled into the parking lot in her car. Not many people, no one was around. And she was found just about 300 feet from her car, strangled. She was still partially clothed in her drill team uniform, and there was a pile of clothes found nearby her body in the grass. Investigators at the time believed her murder had been sexually motivated, but they didn't have really a ton to go on. They did rounded up the usual suspects and, really worked the case. But for almost 30 years, Sarah's case went unsolved.
Yes, and it's important to note the clothing that Sarah was wearing and the clothing on the side. There was DNA evidence, but again, this was 1991 and DNA technology had not evolved yet to the point where we are today. So investigators did their part. They preserved very carefully that evidence, but they knew, Lauren, that at some point in time, that they would hopefully be able to get clues and to be able to verify and use that DNA to hopefully find a match down the road. As you said, for a long time, the case went cold for nearly 30 years until a forensic genetic genealogist was able to crack the case. She was hired to track some new leads.
Yeah, in 2019, this forensic genetic genealogist went through and basically reverse engineered finding a match to the genetic profile that they had at the scene. And she narrowed it down to these two brothers, one of whom had been incarcerated. So he was in the federal database. He was in CODIS, so it wasn't him. And that's when they focused on Patrick Leon Nicholas. And what investigators did with the King County Sheriff's Department, he still lived in the Seattle area. So they followed him. They found him. They trailed him. They actually went to a laundromat where he was doing laundry and watched as he smoked a cigarette, and then watched him discard the cigarette outside the laundromat right on the sidewalk there. And when he went back inside, they grabbed that cigarette, packaged it up securely, and sent it to a lab. And the DNA from that cigarette was a match to the DNA that had been found on Sarah's clothes all those years ago.
So then, Lauren, how did you come to find out and hear about Ann Croney's story?
So in early 2023, Patrick Nicholas went on trial for the murder of Sarah Yarborough. And right before trial, we had learned through some pretrial motions that Patrick Nicholas actually had a prior criminal record. The judge had ruled that evidence wouldn't be allowed at trial, but we were able to read through and we knew that there had been some previous attacks. And I heard, as we were at trial talking to people, there were kind of whispers like, one of the victims is here. And it was kind of this remarkable, like, oh my gosh, how could someone be here to take that on? I didn't know who it was at the time, but we did learn that back in the early 1980s, Patrick Nicholas had served time as a juvenile for raping 2 women and attempting to rape a third. Reading through the case files, we learned that he had approached multiple women at their cars. He would kind of casually strike up a conversation with them and then pull a knife and order them to undress.
So this brings us now to Ann Croney's remarkable story. And let's go back in time to 1983 in Richland, Washington. That's about 200 miles from where Sarah Yarborough was found dead. Now, Ann was just 21 years old at the time. She was a server at a restaurant. She was also a lifeguard. She loved the water, and specifically the Columbia River. So that's an important part of the story, because on June 13th, 1983, the day all of this happened, Ann said she had just tragically lost one of her really good friends, and she just wanted to sit alongside the river to think. Here's her story.
So I pulled into the parking lot and got out of the car and sat on the bumper of my car.
And you're sitting there thinking, having some time to yourself. How quickly before a man approached you?
It wasn't long. It was maybe a few minutes, and he walked up to me and started a conversation. I don't remember exactly how the conversation started, but he introduced himself, said his name was Pat, and he was new in town, and he was working on an old building in town called the Griggs Building that was empty. And he was working on a remodel. I knew the space well. I knew the story he was talking about. I knew everything about it, and he didn't. He didn't seem to know anything. He seemed to be kind of making things up.
As you listen to that, I mean, Lauren, what struck us, I mean, already her instinct, sort of her spidey senses are going off. Something is off here with this guy. She knows that space well, that she's talking about the Griggs Building. She's like, nothing seems to be adding up. He's acting strange, but he's a good-looking guy. She described him as youngish. He's got blondish hair, glasses, a mustache, but she's getting a really bad vibe from him, right?
Her alarms were going off in her head at that point.
So another fact, as they continued to talk, Nicholas told her he couldn't swim.
And again, that really struck Ann as being odd, because that area along the Columbia River there, like, it gets hot in the summer. It is dry, and swimming and water skiing and just all sorts of activities along the water. It's what everyone does there in the summer. So for him to say that, it really stuck out to her. And overall, it's just, as he keeps talking, she's kind of placating him, but she's just getting a very weird vibe from him all along.
I noticed his voice was getting shaky, and I told him I had to go. So I went around and got into my car, and my door was open, and I had a 2-seater sports car. And he knelt in between the door and me, and
got in your way?
I was in the car. So I got in the car, And the door was open, and he knelt down between the door and me, and told me his name. He gave me his name and phone number, and he asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him, and I went to close the door, and he put a knife to my throat.
And what was he saying as he put the knife to your throat?
He told me not to scream. He told me to take my clothes off. So I did take my clothes off, and as I was doing that, I noticed a couple of people walking to a car that was parked sort of nearby, and I did scream, but he put the knife to my throat a little harder and pushed me down and laid on top of me so they couldn't see me.
It's really hard to hear Anne describing those moments, just to think about the terror that must have been going through her mind. She told us, after he put the knife to her throat, he actually took her underwear and put them in her mouth almost as a sort of gag so that she wouldn't keep screaming, so that she wouldn't be heard.
Right. And there were people nearby pulling up into the parking lot. So she was trying to get people to notice and to come help her. But talk about that terrifying few minutes for her. Well, we learned from Anne then what happens next.
He told me to get out of the car, and he had a shirt that he put over my head. He actually told me to put it on, and I refused. So he put it over my head and put my left arm through it and grabbed the back of it and shoved me towards the bank of the river. And we started walking, and we got about halfway down the bank, and he told me to stop. And I didn't. Instead of stopping, I pulled the shirt off over my head and ran down the bank and dove into the river and swam. Because at that time I was thinking he told me he couldn't swim. So I swam out and swam as hard as I could.
Swam for your life.
I swam for my life. All I had on was my tennis shoes. And I swam to a dock and started screaming for help.
Wow. I mean, to have the presence of mind to be thinking in that moment, he told me he can't swim. And to see that is your opportunity.
Every time I hear that, I just get goosebumps, because even as she was reliving that moment, you could just see the terror in her eyes and just feel the emotion of that. Truly remarkable.
Yeah, and just talk about all the moments of luck here, all the things that happened for her to be able to put that together, that he couldn't swim, that he was leading her towards that riverbank. We went down there to film it, and it's very steep. It's very hard to just jump right down there.
So once she swam for her life and made it to the dock, thankfully, there were people there, and she was able to get help, and the police came to her help as soon as she arrived there. And so she was able to tell police, this happened to me, and his name is Pat, and gave them a good description of who they were looking for.
And based off of his name and his description, the local police pretty soon realized that Pat was likely this man, Patrick Nicholas, who had just recently been released from a halfway house nearby for those previous attacks that he had committed on a juvenile. So police went to track him down. They visited his apartment. He wasn't there. They suspected he must have gotten out of town really quickly, but they did find some key evidence there. They found the notebook that Anne had remembered writing her number down in, and I think they actually found a piece of the page torn out where he had tried to give her his number. So after they searched his apartment, we're like, okay, this is probably our guy. They went to the airport and found out that Patrick Nicholas had hopped a flight soon afterwards and gotten out of town. They tracked him down to the Midwest, and within a few weeks, they arrested him. And he actually pleaded guilty to first-degree attempted rape.
He was sentenced back then to what was the maximum sentence that he could receive, and that was 10 years in prison. So Anne assumed, rightfully so, that he's safely locked away for those 10 years, all of those 10 years in Washington State Prison. But it turns out in 1987, Nicholas is let out early on parole. So Anne was never notified. Police never told her, never sent her a letter or anything to let her know that the guy who did this to you, he is now out. She told us, though, Lauren, that she tried really hard within those years to kind of put this out of her mind, and she didn't want it to have a major impact on her life. All of that changed, though, in 2019. Here's Ann again.
The police knocked on my door in Portland and said that there were detectives in Seattle that wanted to talk to me about a cold case. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And they wanted to come interview me about it. So that was the first I'd heard of it.
And how did you feel hearing about what happened to Sarah? What did they tell you about her story?
They told me that there were similarities in the cases. And I was crushed.
It's this part in the interview I remember. This is where Ann just kind of paused and broke down. She'd been really kind of strong through that interview and was just recounting things. But I think, this is describing the realization that Sarah Yarborough's murder wasn't any way connected to what had happened to her so many years ago.
And she, I think, was dealing with, as she described to us, her own version of survivor's guilt. Once she realized how her story and Sarah's were connected tragically.
Yeah. It had never occurred to me that what I escaped from was a murder. I just had always figured I'd escaped from a rapist, which you can survive a rapist. You get past it. You can't get past murder. And the fact that she was only 16 was really hard to hear. And then when I found out that he had been released early, and this happened when he was supposed to be in prison.
For what he did to you.
For what he did to me, really affected me.
I bet you were angry, a lot of
I
it.
was very angry.
When he was arrested for what he did to you, he confessed. And he wrote in his confession, "I realize I have a problem concerning raping girls." You had never heard that?
No. So
he says that, and he ended up serving.
So why was he let out after 3.5 years? Yeah. What a little f***er. No, I didn't know that. You know, Sorry. Sorry.
So that's the part you didn't hear on our 48 Hours episode, obviously, because of the language. Now, we all kind of laughed a little bit at that, but usually humor is a coping mechanism, and that was the case here. This was truly a very traumatic experience and memory for Ann, and especially, learning that he did not complete his full sentence, and then hearing that detail that she only heard now for the very first time, that he had told police at the time that he had a problem raping girls, trying to rape girls, and yet he was able to get out early on parole, which she just was clearly very angry, but at the same time, she had to laugh at the insanity of it all.
I remember in that interview, she had been so strong. And then it just kind of broke through. And yeah, you hear us laughing in the background because we're all crying. And then hearing it, like, oh.
It just gave us a moment of levity. I think just having her real life reaction, I think it just made us all so grateful that she was able to speak so freely and to just tell it like it is with us.
And I remember, we weren't really sure how far she'd want to go. We'd wanted to be very sensitive with this because we knew it was a lot for her to come forward, using her name to come on TV to talk about this.
We actually were in this really incredible space because we wanted her to feel very comfortable. It was like a horse ranch. It was my version of paradise. And there was horse therapy right outside the door. So after this interview, we all went out and we were petting the horses because we needed it. I mean, it was just really such a powerful interview. And she just gave us so much.
Absolutely. I mean, her strength just stuck out to us all along. And even going back to the trial, so I was there, we were hearing these whispers that there was a victim there. And it was almost inconceivable. I mean, like, wait, how could someone have the strength to come and do this? And learning that it almost brought this back full circle for her, that she had thought she had done her duty back in 1983, that she had put away this bad guy, that the justice system had worked for her. And then so learning that it had failed Sarah Yarborough by him being let out early so that he was able to attack Sarah Yarborough, she felt like she had to be there. She had to see justice truly be done this time around.
I mean, she was there for as much of the trial as she could be. You were there, Lauren. I mean, there was so much emotion. It was a packed courtroom. Her friends, her family, they were all there. They were there to witness this moment nearly 30 years later. That speaks to the kind of woman that Sarah Yarborough was. She was a connector.
I've actually never seen anything like this. And it was almost overflowing. Everybody, usually in a trial, there's like the victim side, the victim's family side, and then the defendant side. And in this, there were just so many people there.
So this brings us to how Ann Croney came into the courtroom and where she sat. You know, the courtroom's full, so she goes and chooses to sit right behind Patrick Nicholas because that was the open spot.
I was sitting there thinking I could easily jump up and put my hands around his neck, or I could slam his face into the table. That would be great. And I thought, no, I don't think anybody else would really appreciate that. So,
order in the court.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting because it made me think that two of Sarah's friends said they first saw you get behind him. They're like, is she with him? No. And then they cornered you. They said they got out into the hallway and they were like, who are you? Like wanting to know what you were there for.
Yes.
So they hadn't heard your story yet
No.
or about you. I guess the judge wouldn't allow that. Yeah.
I think they must have heard something because they did ask my connection. And I said, I believe I told them I was the one that got away. And it took them a second. And then, yeah.
And they full embrace.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful people. Oh my gosh, wonderful people.
Sarah's been gone a long time, but they could hug Ann.
And they have remained friends with Ann Croney, which is remarkable.
The thing that I heard in court was that one of his survivors is here and she's a badass. And then I remember I just gave her my card very tactfully. I don't know if you want to talk. But then I remember at your interview with her, Natalie, we were sitting there and we were just like, she's a badass. Like, I get it. Yep. And Natalie, in your interview, you asked her what Nicholas looked like when she saw him in court. And here was her response.
Can I say it?
Yes, go ahead.
He
We'll
looked
bleep
like
you
a
out.
piece of shit. I mean, he just looked like an old piece of shit. You know, he was young when I saw him. He was young. Vital comes to mind, fairly attractive, and he's just an old piece of shit now. Sorry.
You heard the anger there. She was still, living in that moment. But even though she was struck by the fact that his appearance had changed, but she said looking at him and staring at him in the eyes, she saw those same evil eyes staring back at her. They were the same. So after the jury found Patrick Nicholas guilty of the murder of Sarah Yarborough, Ann was able to finally speak her truth by giving a victim impact statement during the sentencing hearing. Let's listen to some of that.
We rely on a system of justice that is designed to protect us from predators like Nicholas, and this system failed me. It failed Sarah, her family, friends, and countless others. I ask the court to please not make the same mistake.
And I don't know if Nicholas knew that she was there until this moment. And she stood up and she gave it to him. And she told the judge, like, hey, don't mess this up again. I can't imagine the feeling that she had inside of her to do that. It must have been so scary and so intimidating at first. But she told you, like, it was really that community and that love from Sarah's friends and family that really helped her get up there and put it all out there.
Yeah.
And he was, and the judge did sentence him to 46 years in prison. So he's not going to get out anytime soon.
And I think an important detail was that Ann has a daughter as well at the time of the trial who was Sarah Yarborough's age, 16 years old, and how much that probably impacted her as she was saying those words.
Yeah. And she talked with you in her interview about how, like, they have had talks about how when something happens, what to do when you're attacked, that you fight. And if you're lucky, really, like the luck here is so essential. If you can put those pieces together, you can get away. She was able to really follow her instincts there. And again, the luck of being near the water and knowing that he couldn't swim, her gut telling her that something was off. She was able to have the presence of mind to recall all of this, to get away. So, I mean, just her thinking that, all right, I've got to protect my kid here, give her the tools she could use. I mean, it's really, really impactful.
Yeah, I mean, truly everything sort of lined up in order for her to be able to survive. There was also a moment, what I love about Anne is that she told us she wanted to take back that part of her life. She decided to do a triathlon that summer after Nicholas's murder trial, diving right back into those very waters of the Columbia River that saved her life. And she started by parking in the exact same spot that she did in that parking lot in the park where the attack occurred. Take a listen.
The parking lot's the same. The trees have grown up, so it looks different, but the bank is a lot steeper than I thought it was, and further up from the river. It's about 10 feet. So I was surprised. Pretty proud of myself for what I'd done, because it was pretty amazing that I was able to do that. There was a reason that I was meant to do that, and I was able to do that. But doing the triathlon was interesting. I didn't have any odd or bad feelings. Swimming in the river was great.
Do you feel like you reclaimed that
Absolutely.
space, though?
I do, because the swim took off at the same dock that I was rescued on. So I do. I felt like I reclaimed all of that, and there's no fear to stop me from doing what I love to do.
We just loved that moment so much.
Even after going through hearing about Sarah Yarborough's death, going through the trial, stepping forward, she was like, you know what? I want to get back there. And I want to show that I can do this, and I'm going to reclaim this. It's just incredible.
And I think you hear a lot of survivors who say that. They say, I wanted to, get myself back, take my power back. And in doing that triathlon, she did. I think it's so important that we tell these survivors' stories, because I think we can all learn so much from them as well. What it takes to do something when something feels off or doesn't feel right, what it takes to speak up, what it takes to fight back, to scream as loud as you can possibly scream. She did all of that and then some. And then at the end of the day, she got her peace with justice. Lauren, I have to thank you so much for joining me. And of course, I have to say our thanks as well to Anne Croney. And thanks to all of you who have listened. And be sure to stay tuned for more stories from courageous individuals like Anne by following and listening to 48 Hours, It Could Have Been Me on Tuesdays on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like this episode, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm Natalie Morales for 48 Hours.
This wasn't just a crime scene, was it?
No, it was not. This one was bad. Two innocent people that were on their first date had their lives destroyed. For what reason?
How well did Leslie Reeves know Chris Smith?
First date. Chris was in a band and a singer, and they had connected, and he asked her out.
The night before Thanksgiving, they decided just to meet up and go to the bar.
He lived 65 miles away in a really small farming community.
The bar that night was very busy. The place was packed, wall to wall. Chris and Leslie were talking a lot, laughing, getting along with everyone around them.
She texted me around 10 and she said everything's going okay. She did then text a second text that said, I feel like something's a little bit off or something. I'm not sure what she meant.
Was that text the last time you heard from Leslie Reeves?
Yes. It was.
Did you try texting her in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
And did she respond?
No. I just started driving towards Farmersville because I had the address and called the police department in that area.
Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, this is Jeff.
Hi, I'm greatly concerned about my friend. Can someone do a welfare check?
What are you feeling at this point, Nana?
A lot of anxiety because I don't know what I'm going to walk into going up there to this house. I pulled up in front of the address.
And then who came while you're sitting there?
While I'm sitting there, who's this woman parked? I said, well, maybe I'll roll my window down and talk to her.
I asked her if she was checking on Chris, and she said she was checking on her friend. And that's when I went up to the door. I saw the back door was broken, and then I saw Chris laying there. And then I ran back to my car and called 911.
Nobody's answering the door, and the back window's shattered, and there's a body, and there's a foot I saw on the floor. I'm only 16. I can't deal with this.
I was in shock, I think.
Sheriff's Office, Jeff.
Jeff, give me some help. I got one alive and one dead.
I just remember them bringing Chris out on the stretcher to the ambulance. I remember there being a sheet over him, so it made me panic a little bit.
I got a call from our command center in Springfield.
So you are the lead crime scene investigator?
Yes.
Were you really prepared for what you faced when you walked into that house?
I was not.
Why would somebody do this to him? Why would they try to hurt my baby? That's all I kept thinking. He's my baby. Someone hurt him.
Going on a first date and they both end up getting shot is insane.
On the afternoon of Thanksgiving Day 2021, Nanette Stiber sat in her car and watched anxiously as EMTs and Montgomery County Sheriff's deputies descended on a house in the tiny village of Farmersville, Illinois.
I was quite upset and kind of going crazy in the car.
Nanette had been unable to reach her good friend Leslie Reeves. Nanette knew Leslie had gone to that house the night before to go on a first date with Chris Smith, a man she had met online.
She was very excited. She thought, oh, this might be a really good connection.
But now Nanette was worried. She'd seen Chris get taken away in an ambulance, but there was no sign of Leslie.
I kept hoping, okay, bring Leslie out, please.
Finally, a detective approached and asked Nanette for a photo of Leslie. She showed him her phone, and he gave her the horrible news.
I'm so sorry to have to tell you this. Your friend has been murdered, shot, he said. He didn't tell me where, but he did say, I want you to know that she went very quickly.
EMTs had found Chris barely conscious and unable to say anything about the shooting. They rushed him to the hospital, and deputies searched the house. Later that day, crime scene investigator Josh Easton of the Illinois State Police was called to the scene, and he began cataloging the mayhem inside. What do you see when you first approach the door?
I noticed the side door of the house, the glass in the door has been broken out. The refrigerator was pulled away from the wall The kitchen table was pushed, the chairs were knocked over.
No weapon was found, leading investigators to suspect that a third person was involved. Easton took note of every detail, including the burnt pizza in the oven.
I assumed that maybe they were cooking a pizza for the night, and the suspect shows up at the door. They both tried to fight him off, and when Chris was shot, Leslie went to the living room to try to hide.
How many times was she shot?
She was only shot one time.
In the head?
In the head.
Leslie's body was in the living room, while Chris had been found in the kitchen. Easton said of the 1,800 crime scenes he had been to, this was one of the most horrific.
There was blood everywhere. The cabinets, the refrigerator, the countertop, there was blood from corner to corner in the kitchen.
Easton spotted 2 silver-colored bullet casings from a 9mm gun, one in the kitchen and the other near Leslie's body. As Easton processed the scene, detectives began learning about the victims. Chris Smith was a 48-year-old divorced father who worked for a pool contractor.
Chris was a nice guy. He would hang out here frequently, was friends with most people in town. Everybody knew him.
Bartender Dina LeGrand says Chris was well known in town as the guy who grew banana trees and giant pumpkins.
I remember one Halloween, he donated hundreds of pumpkins for decorations for any of the kids to paint. He gave back to his community.
Did either one of you ever worry about Chris?
No.
No.
Sharon Costanza is Chris's mother, Ashley Holcomb, his sister.
Chris is a stay-home person that literally would just work in his backyard.
Chris lived with a dog named Tiki, and an EMT told the family that Tiki may have helped Chris make it through the night by huddling with him for the roughly 12 hours that Chris was bleeding before being rescued.
I think Tiki protected Chris. I think she probably laid right next to him.
Chris's close-knit family could not imagine anyone wanting to kill him.
It was like, no way, how, why, like, who? Yeah, who would have done that?
Investigators had the same questions about Leslie and learned that she was a divorced mother of 2 children who lived in Troy, about an hour south of Farmersville. Although Leslie had a master's degree in engineering, she chose instead to teach Pilates and to promote self-defense classes for women.
Hi, I'm Leslie from All You Studio, and
Leslie posted this video to her YouTube channel to advertise one of her classes.
Empower yourself against aggression and assault as we teach you easy-to-learn self-defense techniques. Power up!
Leslie tried to help women in abusive relationships, but friends say she had her own troubles. Nanette told deputies she was worried about a former boyfriend, a contractor by the name of Robert Tarr, known as Bobby.
She said, I am going to completely block Bobby from email, texts, phone calls. I have to go no contact.
Later that evening, news of Leslie's murder began circulating and reached another close friend, Amy Steinhauer. She had met Tarr, a divorced father of 3, and did not have a good impression of him. But
you never see someone and think that they can kill my friend.
Amy called the sheriff's office that night to give them Tarr's name. By then, detectives had already set out to find Bobby Tarr, while 85 miles to the north, surgeons were fighting to try to save the life of Chris Smith, a bullet still lodged in his brain.
I just wanted to get there. I just wanted to get there as fast as I could.
After learning that Chris had been shot in the head, His family rushed to the hospital in Springfield, Illinois, 2 hours from their home.
I was on the phone to everyone I could think of because I just needed prayers from everybody.
Doctors removed part of Chris's skull and some bullet fragments in his brain before putting him in a medically induced coma. His family, struggling to piece together what had happened, learned that he had been out with a woman named Leslie Reeves. Had you ever heard the name Leslie Reeves before?
No. I looked her up, and then I tried to reach out to her friends, and then I found her best friend, Nanette.
Nanette told them the same thing she had told investigators. She suspected Leslie's ex-boyfriend, Bobby Tarr. That night, sheriff's deputies went to Tarr's home in Collinsville, an hour south of the crime scene. Authorities say he never asked why they wanted to talk to him, and he agreed to go to the police station without a lawyer.
T-A-R-R, correct?
Although her friend said the couple had broken up, Tarr told investigators that he and Leslie were still together.
You and Leslie have a lot of problems. I wouldn't say no worse than any average couple.
It was Leslie the detectives wanted to talk about.
I want you to dig down deep here and be as honest with me as you can, okay? Leslie is dead. What? Can you help me shed some light on this? How did she die? She was murdered. What happened? That's why we're here with you. You help me believe that you're not involved in this. I'm not involved in anything.
Investigators asked Tarr about Farmersville, the scene of the crime.
You know what Farmersville is? Farmersville. No, I can't say that I do. I've never been there. I've never heard of it.
And they asked Tarr where he had been the night before Thanksgiving.
I went to a buddy of mine's house. He left and left me some money out of his shop, and I had to go pick it up.
The friend lived a short distance from Tarr's home.
Remember what time he came back? Yeah, it wasn't that long. Maybe 6:30ish, something like that.
Investigators believe the shooting took place sometime early on Thanksgiving morning after 1 a.m. Tarr said after he got back, he was home all night.
You can talk to my daughter about me being home.
That's exactly what they did. Detectives brought Tarr's 17-year-old daughter, Shelby, to a different room at the police station, and she told them that her father actually left home twice that night.
So the first time he left was roughly 6:30.
Right.
And then he came home about a half hour later and
Right.
said he had to go back.
Right.
And then it was 9:15ish when he got back home.
Yeah.
Shelby said he had been gone for more than 2 hours, and when he got home, he was upset.
He gets home, he was crying, he was sobbing. He said he missed Leslie.
Shelby said she went to sleep around 9:30 and was awakened by her father around 2:45 a.m.
He started laundry, he was pacing, walking around, and he was like, I can't sleep.
Detectives went back to Tarr and told him Shelby's story did not match his. Tarr then changed his story and said he had gone to his friend's house twice, but still insisted he was home by 8. As Tarr sat at the police station, detectives searched his house and found his phone and a Glock pistol. Shelby had told them her father had a different gun, but they didn't find it.
It's little, it's like this big. I like a light green with the army green.
Shelby told investigators she had seen it the day before Thanksgiving in her father's sock drawer.
Yesterday morning, actually, I went to get socks and it was there. And now it's not there.
It was there yesterday, gone today. Okay.
Bobby Tarr sat at the police station overnight while authorities continued to investigate. They had already learned that his car had been captured by license plate reader cameras just after midnight, the night of the shooting. The cameras were near a gas station, and investigators discovered that Tarr had bought gas there just after midnight. Back at the police station, they confronted him with the gas station receipt.
So you're a liar. Because I don't remember doing that. You don't remember being out after midnight when you have told us you are 100% positive?
The gas station is here in Troy.
Yes.
And the murder occurred here in Farmersville.
Correct.
The gas station was near Tar's home, an hour from the crime scene. Andrew Affronti is the Montgomery County State's attorney. He has dystonia, a condition that causes muscle tics and tremors. So why is it significant? So he went out and got some gas.
It was significant to us because why would he lie about it?
So I got fuel. What does that prove?
Investigators believed it was proof Tar was lying about his whereabouts that night. They placed him under arrest.
You're under arrest for murder.
Affronti says they arrested Tar immediately because they feared Chris's life was in danger. And they hadn't found the murder weapon.
If he was out of custody, could he take further steps to dispose of the evidence?
Just one day after Leslie Reeves was killed and Chris Smith was left fighting for his life, investigators believed they had the man responsible in custody. I'm Erin Moriarty.
Bobby Tar.
But in his only media interview, Bobby Tar tells 48 Hours they got the wrong guy.
There is so many things untold that will prove my innocence.
Bobby Tar, charged with the murder of Leslie Reeves and the attempted murder of Chris Smith, is nothing if not unflappable. Did you kill Leslie Reeves?
No.
Did you shoot Chris Smith?
No.
He kept his cool even when confronted with a litany of lies he told investigators. You told the police you only left the house once. That wasn't true.
Correct.
You told the police you had no idea where Farmersville is. That was a lie. You lied about getting gas in your car that night. When he spoke with us, Tar admitted he was at Chris Smith's house the night before Thanksgiving, placing himself at the scene of the crime. He says the night began when he met Leslie at her part-time job at this loft store.
She had said she was going to go meet some friends because one of their friends was playing in a band. She asked me if I wanted to go. And I said, well, you know, I would go, but I have my youngest daughter staying with me for a week.
Tar says that when he declined the invitation, Leslie asked if he would follow her to Farmersville because her van was unreliable, and so he did. That makes no sense to Leslie's friend, Amy Steinhauer.
She was terrified of him. And rightfully so.
Just a few weeks earlier, Amy says, Leslie told her that Tar had shown up while she was on a first date with a different guy. After that incident, Leslie told Amy she was frightened by Tar and texted Amy, I could be killed by him someday if I don't cut all contact. So you're telling me now that this woman who was scared of you, who had actually texted a friend that she thought you might kill her, asked you to follow her to another man's house? Does that make any sense?
No, I understand. So I don't understand that text in general.
Why did she think you might kill her?
I don't know. I've got no clue.
Tar says Leslie lied to her friends about their relationship. He insists she asked him to follow her north to Farmersville.
So I went with her up there. I think we arrived there around 7:30. I parked in front of her van, in front of his house. That's as far as I went. I left. I never went back to Farmersville again.
If he had an innocent explanation for why he was in Farmersville, why did he lie to detectives?
My daughter, her and Leslie, there was a little bit of tension between both them. I did not want her to know that I was going to meet Leslie that night.
Tar claims that after he lied to his daughter Shelby about seeing Leslie, he stuck to that lie at the police station because he was afraid they would tell her. And he never corrected those lies, even when detectives arrested him. why not just say, look, between you and me, I lied to my daughter, so let me tell you the truth, but let's just not share that with her. Why wouldn't you do that?
I should have done that.
He's quick to point out the lack of physical evidence connecting him to the bloody crime scene. Investigators searched his white Jetta, but did not find any shards of glass or bloodstains.
2 tests by the state police were done on my car. 0 blood found in my car. There's 0 DNA of mine at the crime scene, anything from the crime scene in my car or on me or any of my clothing or my shoes. 0.
Prosecutor Affronti has to concede that point. Was any of Tar's DNA found inside the house?
No.
Were any of his fingerprints found inside the house?
No.
And authorities still had not found the murder weapon. But a week after the shooting, they got a phone call from Tar's friend Billy Adams. Adams said Tar had called him from jail. That call was recorded.
What's your day look like today? Because I need 10 minutes of your time.
Tar asked Adams to go to his house and look for some deck brackets.
I got some special aluminum brackets and that I need you to get because they're for another job that I didn't tell Dad about yet. So don't say nothing to him.
Instead, Adams contacted the sheriff's office. Deputies suspected Tar knew the phone call was being recorded and was speaking to his friend in code about something other than deck brackets.
Yeah, get them and get rid of them.
They thought that was suspicious, which was why they went over and searched.
Investigators were on their hands and knees in Tar's yard looking for a gun. Dan Foltz is Tar's defense attorney.
They searched that area thoroughly. No gun. You know what they did find? Deck brackets.
A few days later, they got another phone call, this time from Tar's brother, asking them to come back to the house. Tar's family gave deputies a Ziploc bag they said they had found in the same yard that had been searched just days earlier. Inside, a Springfield Hellcat 9mm pistol and silver-colored ammunition. The Illinois State Police determined the gun was the murder weapon, and the ammunition matched the casings found at the crime scene.
We still to this day don't know how that ended up there, specifically in the spot that they searched.
Are you saying you were set up? Someone was framing you?
Yes.
But if someone was framing Tar, he or she would have to be pretty detail-oriented. The state police say Tar's fingerprint was on the Ziploc bag.
He is adamant that he would not have been dumb enough that he would have carried it all the way back to his home and said, where would I put this gun on my 1-acre lot? I think I'll put it next to the front door.
And Tar points out neither his prints nor DNA were found on the gun itself.
Nothing on the firearm, no DNA, no prints of mine on the firearm.
What I think what happened is that the gun was cleaned and that Mr. Tar just missed a spot.
That spot was Leslie's DNA, say police, found on the guide rod of the gun. Tar's explanation? The gun wasn't his, it belonged to Leslie.
I purchased the Hellcat and Leslie purchased it from me.
As investigators continued to build a case against Bobby Tar, they say he was hatching a plan to silence the only eyewitness. Did you ask an inmate to shoot Chris Smith?
Leslie accompanied me here on several occasions.
If there's anyone who knew what guns Leslie Reeves owned, it's Howard Bolton, her close friend and firearm instructor.
When I would hold classes, she would actually shoot with us. Leslie was becoming a very good shot.
Bolton says Leslie had organized a class called Girls with Guns not long before she was murdered.
We put the girls through their paces. They would move and fire. They would go forward and fire. They would come back and fire. And Leslie did very, very well at that.
Bobby Tarr insisted to us that Leslie owned the Hellcat that was used to kill her. But Howard says he never saw her use it.
Leslie never brought a Springfield, let alone a Hellcat, to class.
So then, how did Leslie's DNA get on the guide rod of the murder weapon? Howard believes that Leslie's DNA could only be on that guide rod if the gun was fired at her at close range.
So when he shot her, wherever it was he shot her, would have contaminated that part of the gun.
In fact, Howard says Leslie owned a different gun. Her friends say they wish she had taken it with her the night she was killed.
Had Leslie taken the gun with her, I assure you the outcome would have been different.
Tarr declared his innocence, but the case against him could hinge on what Chris Smith, the only survivor, remembers. Would he be able to identify him? That was the question as Chris remained in a coma.
We were talking to him, singing to him, and I was always holding his hand.
While Chris Smith lay helpless, authorities say Tarr was plotting to silence him forever. A grand jury indicted Tarr on 2 counts of solicitation of murder. Those charges are based on allegations by an inmate who says Tarr paid him $10,000 to shoot and kill the lead detective and Chris. Did you ask an inmate to shoot Chris Smith?
No, ma'am.
And to kill Detective Roach?
No, ma'am.
Tarr says the alleged plot was a lie concocted by a former cellmate. Tarr says he loaned that cellmate $10,000 for his bond and that it had nothing to do with Chris Smith. Were you worried he was going to testify and point to you as the shooter?
No, I was not worried one iota.
The truth was that no one knew what Chris Smith remembered. The first time he regained consciousness was in early January 2022, about 2 months after the shooting.
Like egg foo young.
Egg foo young?
Chris's voice was so weak in those early days
It's already done over there.
that his old friend Mark Reardon, a talk show host in St. Louis,
522, 97.1 FM Talk. Mac Bradley.
barely recognized Chris on the phone.
I could not believe that I was hearing from this guy. And I cried, he cried. Just talking about that moment really brings me chills because I just thought he was never going to be someone that was in my life ever again.
What did Chris tell you?
Well, when Chris came out of this, I was pretty sensitive to ask him about what had happened that night because I think I was a little afraid of even having those conversations. So most of the conversations that we had were really focused on, hey, how are you? Are you going to be okay?
After intense physical therapy, he's made incredible strides. He's much stronger than when he awoke from a coma, but he discovered there are gaps in his memory. What does he remember from that terrible night?
I wish to God I could remember something. I mean, even just a smidgen of something, but I remember nothing.
He remembers nothing of the shooting or Leslie Reeves.
I said, who the heck's Leslie? I don't know Leslie.
You had no idea?
No, nothing.
Nothing?
No, nothing.
Is Chris the same person who used to come on your show before he was shot?
Yeah, I think at the core, he's still the same guy that I knew. He's still the smartass. He's still the guy that's going to talk about how good he is and how good he was and how much he could lift weights.
Chris works out at the gym most mornings, trying to regain muscle so that someday he'll be able to walk without assistance.
Straighten them curves.
He's even back to being the lead singer in his rock and roll band.
I don't know how he did make it. I don't understand how he did. He's a miracle.
But Chris is aware his life is very different from what it once was.
So I'm half the man I used to be, but I'm trying to get it back as hard as I can. And then my left leg is partially paralyzed from my hip to my knee, then from my knee to my toes completely paralyzed. So if there's any neurosurgeons out there, any researchers out there, please get a hold of me. I'll be your guinea pig. Just make me normal and give me my life back, please.
It's tough, isn't it, Chris?
Tough doesn't even describe it. Doesn't even describe it.
Chris is resigned to living with part of that hollow point bullet in his brain. Doctors say it's in a spot that makes it too dangerous to remove. So that's where you got shot?
Yep, right here. Yep, you still feel it in my skull. Right there.
After decades on his own, Chris had to move back into his mother's house.
I thank my blessings daily that he's here with us. I just wish that this guy didn't take everything away from him.
Chris visits with his loyal dog, Tiki, but no longer lives with her. And he'd love to see his 12-year-old daughter more often, but he can't drive. And he's living in St. Louis, almost 2 hours away from his daughter and ex-wife.
I miss her. She was my little pea in the pod. I mean, we did everything together.
The trial of Robert Tarr was set for April 2024, but Chris would not be there. He told the prosecutor he was too angry to attend. You didn't think you'd be able to just sit there?
Oh, no, no way. I know myself. There's no way, no.
But Chris's alleged shooter, Bobby Tarr, will be there. And he said he was eager to tell the jury that he's not a violent man. But on this one night early morning, did you snap?
No. That's not my nature. I don't lose it and snap.
When Bobby Tarr went on trial in April 2024, prosecutors told the jury that he killed Leslie Reeves rather than allow her to live the life she wanted, a life without him.
Mr. Tarr couldn't deal with the fact that Leslie was seeing somebody else and he had to go and take care of it.
Andrew Affronti says Tarr secretly followed Leslie to Farmersville early that evening. And shortly afterwards, his phone began showing some interesting activity.
He had actually searched Chris Smith on his phone, had tried to find his Facebook profile.
Tarr headed home and texted his friend Billy Adams. I don't feel like she would drive that far for a party or go out with a girlfriend. I think it's for a dude. He also searched whether police could track his phone if he was using a VPN, a virtual private network.
He was researching to determine whether or not that would mask where his location was while he was using the phone.
Authorities say around midnight, Tarr left home, stopping at that gas station. And then, according to Affronti, surveillance videos and cell tower records show that Tarr drove back to Farmersville. You believe he intended to kill both Chris and Leslie?
I 100% believe that he went up there with the intent to do serious harm to both of them.
With one victim dead and the other with no memory, it's difficult to say with certainty what happened. But the prosecution argued that sometime after 1 a.m., Bobby Tarr tried to enter through the back door of Chris Smith's house. Leslie and Chris tried to keep him out.
There was some kind of altercation or struggle, and that's when the glass was broken.
Crime scene investigator Josh Easton told the jury what he had observed inside the kitchen.
The refrigerator was pulled away from the wall where it appeared it normally was.
Prosecutors believe Leslie was trying to use the refrigerator to block the door. And based on where Chris was shot in his head, they think he was crouching down to help Leslie.
I think that while Chris was crouched down trying to hold the door shut, Bobby shot through the door and struck Chris.
With Chris incapacitated, Affronti says Leslie hid in the living room. Tarr tracked her down, shot, and killed her.
I strongly believe that he walked in and executed her.
Defense attorney Dan Fultz disputes all of that.
There is simply no evidence that that's what happened. There's no evidence that Leslie pushed the refrigerator. There's no fingerprints and blood on the refrigerator of Leslie's.
Volt says evidence of a fight in the kitchen tells a different story.
The amount of blood in that kitchen was astonishing.
From looking at that crime scene, do you believe that Christopher Smith had to fight his assailant in the kitchen?
It would appear to me that there was some significant struggle in that kitchen between him and someone else.
And he says the assailant could not have been Bobby Tarr because he would have been covered in blood.
They did not identify a single piece of DNA in his car. They didn't identify a bloody fingerprint. They did not identify anything tying him to that crime scene.
But prosecutors argued the house wasn't bloody when Tarr left. They said Chris bled heavily in the 12 hours it took for help to arrive. And while the prosecution did not have a lot of forensic evidence linking Tarr to the crime scene, Affronti says his phone activity, his lies to investigators, and the evidence found on the Hellcat all prove his guilt.
When you put all of that together, that's when you get the clear picture of what happened.
When it was the defense's turn, Tarr says he wanted to tell his story to the jury, but he chose not to testify. Why didn't you just decide you were going to talk to the jury and tell this story if, in fact, you have a story to tell?
I should have. I very well should have.
We made a strategic decision because it may have opened the door for a whole lot of other more damaging evidence to be used to cross-examine him.
The defense didn't put on any witnesses and counted on the jury to find reasonable doubt in the lack of physical evidence. After 3 hours, the jury found Bobby Tarr guilty of first-degree murder and attempted murder.
Everyone clapped. And Bobby just sat there, shaking his head.
2 months later, Tarr was back in court for sentencing, and this time, so was Chris, to tell the judge how the shooting impacted him and his family. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom.
Lost my house, lost my truck. I've literally lost my life without being killed.
Tarr also spoke and denied shooting Leslie and Chris. The judge sentenced him to 85 years.
I hope the rest of his time on this earth is hell.
Leslie Reeves' friends are focused on keeping her memory alive.
She was a light of a lot of people's lives. She was always smiling. She was a very good mother, lived for her kids, and was an advocate and champion of women, women's rights, and especially women that were abused.
If it can happen to her, it could happen to anyone, so we all need to be careful.
Chris Smith says he never expected he'd be a victim of domestic violence and cautions other men to take a hard look at their behavior.
If guys, you feel like that, you want to hurt a woman, get help.
While Chris mourns his old life, he's writing a book about his experiences and says he's working to make what he calls poor man's margaritas out of the lemons and limes he's been handed.
I've got a do-over. Good Lord, give me a do-over. And how many people get a second chance in life?
Chris has found love with Michelle Albrecht.
She's an angel, loving me and accepting me the way that I am.
He proposed to her on stage.
I just asked her if she'd marry me, guys.
What's the most important lesson out of all of this?
Don't ever give up on anything, ever, no matter how bad things are. Don't ever give up.
The search for her killer went cold.
Investigators took DNA evidence they could not find who it belonged to.
Can a clue from the past,
I could see a footprint in blood,
solve the crime?
These belong to the killer.
The footprints defined the path of this case.
48 Hours is all new. CBS next and streaming on Paramount+.
If I can come back from a deathbed and survive this and defy medical odds and create medical history or rewrite medical history, anybody can come back and achieve anything in life, no matter how bleak things look in life. There's always the sun rising on the other side.
If you are seeking inspiration, look no further than Chris Smith. His is a story of resilience and recovery. Back in November of 2021, Chris was on a first date with a woman named Leslie Reeves. Now, they had gone back to his house when Leslie's ex-boyfriend, Bobby Tarr, forced his way inside and shot them both. Leslie died, but Chris miraculously survived a bullet wound to his head. He lay comatose in the hospital for several weeks before waking up, and when he did, he had no memory of what happened that night. So how did Chris defy the medical odds and survive the unthinkable? I'm Natalie Morales at 48 Hours, and this is It Could Have Been Me. You're going to be hearing from Chris in just a few minutes. But first, I would like to introduce producer Paul LaRosa. He knows this case well. He worked on this story for an episode of 48 Hours with correspondent Erin Moriarty. Paul, so good to have you join us today on what is such an incredible story of survival and real grit.
Great to be here because Chris is one of the most interesting and resilient people I've ever met.
I know he really touched you and had an impact on our entire 48 Hours team. Walk me through, Paul, what happened on that night, November 24th, 2021.
Right. So it was the day before Thanksgiving, the evening before Thanksgiving. And Chris and Leslie had met on Facebook, as people do these days. They never met in person before this night, but they had texted with each other. They had spoken on the phone to each other, and they were simpatico in a number of ways, mostly because they were really into physical fitness. And Leslie ran a Pilates studio, yoga studio. She taught women self-defense, and Chris was in the best shape of his life when this shooting happened. But anyway, the night before Thanksgiving is traditionally a night when people go out drinking, and that's exactly what they did. Chris said, why don't you come up to Farmersville, which was about an hour from where Leslie lived. And she was in Troy, Illinois. They both had kids. And Leslie's kids were with her ex that evening, and same with Chris. So they were without their children. And Chris had a big house, and he told Leslie, you can sleep in one of the bedrooms if we go out drinking too much, whatever. And that was the plan. She told her girlfriends where she was going to be. She gave them the address because, after all, she never met this guy. But they went out drinking to a place called the Uptown Saloon, and then they went to a second bar. Everything was hunky-dory. Then they went to Chris's nearby house.
Yeah, Paul, because I understand at some point, Leslie's ex-boyfriend, Bobby Tarr, he started to follow them and showed up at Chris's house, right?
Right. No one knows what really happened except Bobby Tarr, who was convicted of the crime, because Leslie is dead and Chris remembers nothing from that night. So it's difficult for investigators to know exactly what happened. But what the evidence reveals happened is Bobby Tarr tried to push his way in. Leslie spotted him through the glass side door. She moved a refrigerator, police believe, in front of the door to try to block him. He was able to maneuver the door part of the way open. Chris was crouched down trying to push the door with his shoulder and his weight, and Bobby Tarr shot him in the head, according to police. Chris went down. Tarr walked in. Leslie ran into the living room, hid behind a Christmas tree, and according to the prosecutors, Bobby Tarr walked in, shot Leslie one time right in the top of the head.
I mean, it's so horrific. The timeline, I understand, is a little unclear as well, but we know it was sometime in the very early morning hours, though.
It was around 1 a.m. when this mayhem occurred, according to investigators, and Leslie and Chris's friends and family were concerned when they didn't hear from them the next morning. Now it's Thanksgiving morning. Both of them had plans to go to Thanksgiving dinner at, separate locations. And when the friends didn't hear from Leslie in particular, she had a bunch of girlfriends who knew she was dating, knew Bobby Tarr, knew that Bobby Tarr had stalked her before. Just a month before, Tarr had shown up at another first date that Leslie was having. They were concerned. They knew the address. In particular, a friend named Nanette Steiber decided, I can't raise her on the phone. I'm driving there. So she drove an hour up to Farmersville. On the way, she called the local sheriff's office. At the same time, a 16-year-old girl who knew Chris showed up at the scene. So this young girl named Brejon Smith, she walked over to the side door. She saw blood everywhere. She saw Chris on the floor. She immediately called 911, and we have a recording of that phone call.
Nobody's answering the door, and the back window's shattered, and there's a body, and there's blood on the stove, and there's a foot I saw on the floor.
Chris, however, was still alive, barely alive, which is truly miraculous.
Yes, and Farmersville being the small town it is, the first two medics who appeared were friends of Chris, and he knew them well. And, of course, they were, horrified themselves. Here's their buddy. And with Chris was his faithful dog, Tiki. Tiki is a female dog, very loyal to Chris. And Tiki huddled with Chris, according to people at the scene, and probably saved his life because the glass door was broken, so a lot of cold air was coming in. And this medic decided that he didn't want to wait for a helicopter to get there. He put Chris in the ambulance with another medic, and he drove like a bat out of hell to the hospital. Again, timing is everything. Probably helped to save Chris's life.
Mm-hmm. And let's take a listen now to what investigator Josh Easton said when he described the scene to you and to correspondent Erin Moriarty.
I was overwhelmed when I saw the kitchen.
What do you mean?
There was just so much blood, and it was everywhere. There was not a spot on the kitchen floor that didn't have blood on it.
What does that say to you?
That I don't know what went on in there, but it was horrible for Chris. It was undescribable without you being there. I can't even make you understand how bad it was.
Josh Easton, who is with the Illinois State Police, it's his job to catalog all the evidence, go in, and sure enough, we talked about the blood, but in the middle of that, there were also 2 shell casings, one in the kitchen, one in the living room. There was no murder weapon. So that, of course, told them that someone else had to have been involved, a third person.
And we know, investigators were quickly able to identify a person of interest, Bobby Tarr, because the friends had already told them that Leslie had a stalker, and it was her ex-boyfriend, Bobby Tarr. How soon after then was he arrested, Paul?
Well, this investigation unfolded rapidly. They find his license, a registration, where he lives, and they put that license into the license plate readers up and down the highway. One of the hits was near a gas station. They went there. They found a receipt where he had paid for gas at a certain time that night. So they began sort of creating a timeline of his movements before they even spoke to him. They were able to later on get his cell phone records as well. Remember, this happened, the shooting, at 1 a.m. By 8 p.m. that evening, just hours later, they were going to Bobby Tarr's house and asking him if he would agree to be questioned. And he submitted to the interrogation. They put him under arrest at about, it was the next day, it was the morning after Thanksgiving.
And he was arraigned on those murder charges and attempted murder charges. To this day, though, he maintains his innocence.
That's right. Bobby Tarr likes to pretend to be what happened? Me? He likes to pretend that, he never did anything wrong.
Well, this episode, of course, is not about Bobby Tarr, but it is about the survivor himself, Chris Smith, and his remarkable recovery. You'll hear from Chris when we come back. So let's hear from Chris Smith himself. Chris, welcome. It is such an honor to meet you.
Thank you, and likewise.
Now, Chris and Paul, I understand you guys text each other weekly, right?
Yeah, I kind of know him. Yeah, I ask a lot of advice from him, actually.
Yeah, and Chris is a terrific guy, as you'll see.
And Chris, I know that you actually wrote a book about your survival and the incredible odds in your recovery.
Yes.
It's called My Fatal First Date, is now available for purchase. And you explain to the readers that your story really is a journey of blood, sweat, and tears. You've had to work really hard to get where you are today. Tell us about the injuries you sustained and where exactly the injury was, if you can point to it.
Well, actually, it's kind of hard with the earphones on, but the bullet went in about 5 inches above my ear, straight to the top of my head. And as Paul said, I'm sure you all have talked about, I don't remember anything of that night. I don't remember Leslie. I was told that we met on Facebook.
Which I find really interesting because they spoke on the phone and texted 2 weeks before the incident. But it's interesting how the brain works. It just excised Leslie out of his brain.
Now, see, I do remember some stuff, like I remember passing my neighbor's house on the drive home that afternoon. I remember some stuff from October. And then, basically, I want to say from the beginning of November on to the shooting, I don't remember much. If that makes any sense. So it's like my brain cut out the whole month. Go figure. I don't know. It's very odd.
I mean, when you talk about where you were shot and how long you were in your kitchen and on the kitchen floor and were able to survive with blood and everything all around you. I know they had to remove part of your skull, but they weren't able to get the entire bullet out, right?
No, it's still 9mm hollow point is actually still right behind my right eye. And they say it's a fragment, but it's actually the whole thing. What when they say fragment, what fragmented was my actual skull fragmented. That's what they were picking out of my brain was my skull, not the actual bolt. The bolt never moved, and it's lodged right here in my frontal lobe. And I mean, I should still be in a coma, I should be bedridden on a ventilator with severe cognitive deficits, and the doctors are perplexed by that.
I want to play some of the sound from your doctor, Dr. Victor Williams. Aaron Moriarty asked him about your chances of survival after the shooting.
So all the odds kind of were against him when he arrived at the hospital.
It would appear so.
But he managed to survive.
It's a blessing and a miracle that he did.
They don't have an explanation, right, Chris?
No, they don't. No, they
What's
don't.
your explanation?
Well, I call it divine intervention, and two of my worst traits before I was shot, stubbornness and impatience, are not my best attributes. And then I'll never forget the day I woke up from the coma, I met Dr. Williams. He came in and he said, Chris, I know your family. I know your sister. My sister's a neurotelemetry nurse, and she actually worked for him on the floor that I was at. And he said, but I hate to tell you, I'm not going to BS you. You're never going to walk again. And I sat there, started tearing up, and I mean, just had a lump in my throat and felt like someone punched me in my gut. And I sat there and I thought about it for a second, and I looked at him. I said, Victor, you just told the wrong person he can't do something because I'm going to do it out of spite to prove you wrong.
And now you're walking again.
Yes. I'll be with the cane. I can walk without one now, but I kind of look like a zombie. But I will get back there. I am. I'm determined to, and I have to. As I told Paul before, hey, life gives us lemon and limes. You've got to dig down deep for that tequila and that sugar water and make poor man's margaritas. And just suck it up, pull your bootstraps up, work your tail off, and you can accomplish anything, overcome anything, exceed at anything, and be unstoppable too.
Yeah. And I know we were talking about what you do and don't remember about that night and what happened when you were asked then about Leslie. Do you remember what you said?
Well, when I woke up from my coma, I mean, I look up, I'm like, I have tubes on me, oxygen. I look on the wall and it says the Paul Hospital, St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm like, wait, what the? And I started yelling and screaming. The nurses came rushing in. Chris, calm down, calm down. I'm like, what am I doing here? What happened? And the one nurse says, Leslie's ex-boyfriend shot you. And I said, who the F is a Leslie? I don't know Leslie because I didn't know. I didn't know her. I really didn't.
I want to go back to, what what perhaps allowed you to get through this in the best possible way, not just, of course, the incredible acts of your friends, the medics who transported you to the hospital. They knew they didn't have the time to spare. But then also, the fact that your family, your sister, as you said, worked with the doctor, was there along your side. I know your family had to help pull you through as well. Can you talk about them?
My sister saw some fight in me, and I started in the ICU. When I started coming out of the coma, they tried to medically and put me in a coma, medically induced coma, which they did succeed to do that. But she saw life in me. I mean, I was saying just craziest things. I wanted my truck keys and my jacket, and I thought I was going to walk out of there. Now, if it's on my YouTube, but you can barely understand what I'm saying. But I mean, it's like a comedian was born. I wanted vitamin D, red cap, whole milk. I swore it was under my bed, and rum chata. I've never drank rum chata in my entire life. Why? The only thing I could think of was maybe that night it was on the bar or something like that. I mean, our brains are so mysterious. They don't know enough about them. They really need to do more brain research.
I know you call it your ICU comedy special because
Correct.
the way you were reacting when you came out of that coma.
Yes, it was crazy. But I mean, I didn't fully become conscious until they transferred me to St. Louis, January 12th.
I've seen, and I know, I've seen glimpses of that sense of humor. And I know that you actually have a funny nickname that you went by with Paul on a text, right? What did you call yourself?
Bullet Boy.
Hey, it's me, Bullet Boy. At that point, I had talked to him like once on the phone, and, I'm conditioned to treat victims very seriously. And I know he was shot in the head, and, I want to give him due respect and all that. And I wasn't going to joke around with him, but he was joking around on his own.
Yeah. I mean, my sense of humor has been one of the best healing mechanisms I've had. And I've never lost that.
That's a good thing because I think it's a survival and a coping mechanism that everybody needs when they go through such horrific trauma and tragedy. Going back to when you were able to get out of the hospital, though, Chris, that was February of 2022. So I know you had to move in with your mom and your stepdad because you really couldn't take care of yourself the way you wanted to, and that you lost your home at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it sucked, but it is what it is. I had to do what I had to do. And, luckily enough that my mom's cool still. She'll be 70 in July, so we're like only 17 years apart, but 17 and a half. Got to add that half on there. So, I'm very fortunate, and I love my stepdad to death, so, I mean, I'm very lucky.
Paul, I know you've met them as well.
Yeah, he has a great family. I've met his mother, his stepfather, and his sister. And, his sister is very intelligent, and she's a nurse and beautiful person. And the stepfather is very friendly and has two big dogs that run around the house. And that's one reason, by the way, that Tiki is no longer living with Chris. Tiki, the dog that helped protect his life. Tiki is with a neighbor.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, Chris. I mean, do you feel that Tiki might have helped save your life that night?
Definitely. They don't understand how I lived. There's so much blood I lost, but she was laying right there, cuddled up next to me the whole time. So she's a great dog.
And I think there was some evidence as well. Was it on your chest that she perhaps had tried to get on you?
Yeah, her little paw marks are right there. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's just.
We didn't. I guess no one knew what that was at the beginning, and then he figured it out, or his family figured it out.
She was just trying to wake her daddy up.
By the way, I don't know if we ever mentioned it, but he was there for about 12 hours, laying on the kitchen floor before anyone found him.
Yes.
In April of 2024, though, we know that that's when Bobby Tarr's trial happened. Were you there?
No, I did not go.
His family was there. And they told him every day what was happening. And another reason Chris didn't go, he could tell you himself, is that he said his anger would not let him go. He was afraid of what he might do if he was in the courtroom. You could tell them yourself, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I said I'd take him out one hand, one arm. I mean, it's like what he did is the most cowardly act anybody can do.
But we should say that you were there for the sentencing and you got a chance to give an impact statement.
Yes, I did.
And how did it feel to be in the same courtroom with Bobby Tarr?
I mean, the guy's a piece of dirt. I mean, he's sorry excuse for a human being.
You talked about the fact that Tar killed you without killing you. What did you mean by that?
He took my life from me. He affected so many other people. My family, my little girl, my son, my friends. They've had to suffer with me through my recovery.
We cannot forget the victim here as well, Leslie Reeves, and what her family has had to go through and endure as well. Just horrific, the tragedy.
It makes you grateful for everything you have,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are the living testament of that now. Chris, though, when Bobby Tar was found guilty on 4 counts, including first-degree murder and attempted murder, what was your reaction to the verdict?
I was happy, but I wish they had the death penalty in Illinois. But he won't get out till he's 140 years old, and he's not going to live that long.
Right. Sentenced to 85 years in prison. What was truly shocking, though, is even after Bobby Tar is convicted, he's in prison. Then you come to find out that there was a solicitation of murder on you.
The story goes, according to prosecutors and his defense attorney, that Bobby Tar had solicited an inmate to go to the hospital room where Chris was recovering and shoot him. We are told by prosecutors that some money did change hands. So Tar was indicted, but the charges were ultimately dropped for various reasons. The biggest reason being that Tar is in jail or prison for 85 years, and it seems to be no point in having another trial and maybe another sentence. 85 years is a lifetime sentence for Tar.
Correct. Yes.
You still have some recovery ahead of you, right?
Yes, I do. Yes. I have been doing, it's called mesenchymal stem cell transplants, MSCs. They harvest stem cells from either my pelvic bone, right and left side now, but and then they shoot them up into your nose, up to the vessel supplying your brain. So it's not FDA approved yet, but it should be here shortly because it has restored a lot of my function to my left-hand side. I'm not running yet, but Paul knows it will be someday, hopefully sooner than later.
Physically, I've seen changes. When he first started, by the way, Chris is still the lead singer in his rock and roll band. That's true.
Yeah.
And he used to play guitar. He can't play guitar anymore. But when I first saw him performing, he always had a great voice. He's a good singer, but his left arm would shake like crazy, like this. And he would joke that he should put a tambourine in it and try to keep beat so it wouldn't look so odd when he was singing because it would just never stop moving. Now, of course, it's pretty steady. And I've seen recent video of him performing and he looks better than ever. His arm doesn't shake. He's standing more. Occasionally he would sit in his wheelchair and sing, but the last clip I saw, he was standing the whole time and arm was steady.
Well, it's great to see you singing again and still performing with your band. I hear, though, there is another woman in your life who has really become your angel.
Yes.
You have fallen in love again.
Yeah.
Tell me about her.
Michelle and I met, it'll be 2 years this June, and we've got a house together, and I'm starting over again.
You're engaged to be married now?
Yes, we are.
When are you going to get married?
We're looking at this fall.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, amazing. What led you to write the book?
Well, as I told Paul, I had no intention of writing a book. Everybody from day one was like, you've got to write a book, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. Well, throughout my recovery, people have been reaching out to me, from all over the world, through Facebook, through other social media outlets and whatnot. And I was like, you know what? I can do it. I could do it. I basically wrote it like I was sitting down having a conversation with somebody like I'm talking to you right now. Just telling my story, all the intimate details that 48 hours couldn't cover, in the first run. And that's what I've done. I was like, I put my thumb to my iPhone because I can't type. I hate saying the word can't. I'm unable to type. So I literally wrote my whole book on my iPhone 14, all typing with my thumb. And just my messages to inspire people, motivate people, and show everybody, no matter how bleak things look in life, there's always a silver lining. You can always dig yourself out of the hole. You can accomplish and achieve anything that you want as long as you put your mind to it and work your tail off.
For those who are struggling in their lives, do you have some advice you'll share? What's your perspective that you tell them?
Life is too precious to ever give up on anything. We don't know how many grains we have left in our hourglass. Don't ever give up on anything. Love your family, love your kids, love your friends, because you don't know when the last grain will fall. But just live life to the fullest. Have fun. Laugh. Don't take things too serious. I mean, I'm not the wisest person in the world, but I have learned a lot of wisdom throughout this whole situation.
Chris, you are truly one of the most remarkable people I've spoken with. So, well done on all that you've done to not only thrive and survive, but you are out there spreading your message and giving inspiration to so many. So we thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
And Paul, thank you also for joining us.
Of course.
And thanks to you all for listening and watching. And you can find and follow It Could Have Been Me in the 48 Hours podcast feed. It is on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you liked this episode, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
It is farm country, horse country, bucolic, upwardly mobile, wealthy type of community, affluent. It's a quiet place.
Tiny, unassuming house. Just a simple farmhouse.
Colts Neck has a lot of these.
Yes.
This beautiful little farmhouse with this beautiful farm star, in the middle of it.
In July of 2013, I was an assistant prosecutor in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Donna Ongsiako was alone. She had just gone to bed for the evening.
An intruder came into her house and attacked her, stabbing her repeatedly.
911, where's emergency? Oh, my name is Donna Ongsiako. I just got stabbed. Where are you? Really bad. A kid just came in and stabbed me. Okay, I think he hit my heart. I'm pouring, gushing blood. Okay. I'm losing consciousness. Keep your eyes open. Donna. Donna.
I was driving home. It was maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30. As I pulled up closer, I saw big SUVs, cop cars, lights flashing everywhere. I was like, where is my mom? And they were like, well, she has been attacked and she's on her way to the hospital. They couldn't tell me whether she was alive or if she wasn't.
I was new into major crimes. I didn't have the experience that some of the older detectives, so I had never seen that much blood before.
Why would somebody do this? Who did this? What did she ever do to anybody,
On that night, in the early morning hours, we got a 911 call from a worker from this restaurant.
About how far from Donna's house are we standing right here?
This is about an 8-minute drive. They called because they saw a subject walking through their drive-through.
Average Detention Police. One of my customers were in drive-thru were approached by a man with no shirt but had a knife in his hand.
Knocking on windows, carrying a knife. One of the witnesses who saw the young man, she agreed to come in and give us a sketch.
Everybody was asking about the police sketch. It was in every store. People were frightened.
Can you tell me about the tip?
I get a call. The woman on the other end says that she's calling about the stabbing in Colts Neck. She said, I think My cousin may have something to do with that.
Tiny Colts Neck, New Jersey sits just 50 miles from New York City. But it might as well be a world away. So in July 2013, this quiet community was rocked by news of a violent home invasion where the victim was stabbed repeatedly. The only thing more shocking?
My name is Donna Ongsiako.
The victim survived.
I lost, in total, close to 3/4 of the blood in my body. There's no earthly reason why I'm alive. None.
If I had asked you at the time to give me a list of 100 things you're worried about, where would a home invasion been?
Oh, no, never.
Donna worked for a company that brokered fuel for ships on the nearby Jersey shore. She and her daughter Kirsten lived in this farmhouse on the edge of flower fields.
She was 20 when she had me, so we're only 20 years and 1 day apart.
Friend Sharon Sharp hired Donna decades ago. Kirsten had just been born?
Yeah, Kirsten was a baby. I thought she was really brave, being a single mom, very young.
I was by her side all the time.
Kirsten, who now works as a welder, recalls what life was like just prior to her mother's attack.
We were going to the gym multiple times a week. Not only was she like mentally strong, but she was physically strong.
She was so fit. She did Tough Mudders with Kirsten.
I like that competition. I like to show strength, physical strength. Things couldn't have been any better at that time.
That's when Saturday of July 4th weekend rolled around. Monmouth County Detective Andrea Tazi says they were having a heat wave.
It was humid, but we had no rain or anything like that. I mean, it was a dry night.
So Donna
had her windows open, yes. She had her windows open just to obviously to circulate air.
Kirsten was out at a party. So I was home doing laundry. I'd say about 11:30. I decide I'm gonna get ready for bed. I let the cat out. I went, brushed my teeth.
But just as she was drifting off to sleep,
I heard what I thought was the cat. I heard something, and I remembered, oh, I forgot to let the cat in.
without turning on any lights, Donna headed downstairs to open the front door for her cat.
But instead, when I opened the door, I saw someone standing there. In the split second after seeing this person on my porch, I saw the knife. He was trying to cut into the screen of the window that was right next to the front door.
She says she didn't recognize the young white male standing right in front of her, holding a large knife.
I tried to slam and shut the door. My fingers were protruding out. He stuck the knife through the opening and cut my finger, so that I immediately let go of the door, and then he pushed his way in. I'm backing into my kitchen. We're face to face. It didn't register to me that he was actually going to stab me.
But without a word, that's exactly what the stranger did.
He slashed my cheek, and you can see that here, and actually it starts back here. There was no way to process that that happened.
Donna's attacker came at her with the knife again.
He then slashed 3 times on this side of my neck.
She tried grabbing the knife, but only cut her own hand in the process.
Did you feel like you were dealing with somebody who was really strong?
No, but I felt like he was very sure. Like he was very in control of himself.
Donna was starting to weaken from the injuries.
I felt like my legs were going to give out. So I braced myself against the corner of my bathroom right next to the front door.
Sure enough, she slid down to the floor.
I was in fetal position and I'm bleeding. And he came over and it was kind of like he was playing, you know, with the knife and just started jabbing at me. So that's when he caught me here. And he got me in the back of my neck here.
Finally, Donna's attacker spoke to her.
This was when he decided to ask me for my car keys and if I had a lighter.
A lighter?
Mm-hmm. I just answered him. There's a lighter in my purse, and my purse was on the table back in the kitchen. So he went over and was rummaging through my purse and got the keys, got the lighter.
Donna's assailant ended up taking her entire purse with him, but not before returning one last time to Donna, still bleeding on the floor.
He said, "You dead bitch," and plunged the knife into my chest.
Once he plunges the knife in and then removes it, what does he do then?
He just walked out the door.
With no neighbors in earshot, Donna knew she must get help, somehow.
Your phone isn't in reach.
No, my phone was upstairs in my bedroom, charging.
Donna had no landline in the house, but even as the blood was draining rapidly from her body, she had one pressing concern above her own survival.
Kirsten could come home and find me. I just didn't want her to have to experience any level of the horror that I had just gone through or any other levels in finding me there, dead.
So this is a mother's instinct as pure as it gets.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
You know you have to get upstairs if you're going to be able to make a call for help.
Right.
How do you get up those stairs?
That I don't know. There was divine intervention that helped me up those stairs. No doubt. No doubt in my mind.
A mother disappears. Evidence points to homicide. The suspect is gone too, leading U.S. Marshals on a relentless manhunt. The chase is on.
Justice is coming.
48 Hours, tonight on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Being an FBI agent is not just a job.
The city's under attack.
It's a life.
We're hunting a serial killer. The life we chose. People are in danger.
It not only works if we're doing it together.
Teamwork.
Cover me. Let's rock and roll.
Team winning. Every member clutch, watch the whole team glisten. Yeah, my whole team winning. Ain't no way to stop us when we be out on a mission.
The FBI's new episodes Tuesday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
We know how his story ended. Now see how it all began. NCIS Origins, coming CBS Fall.
She's a tiny little woman. You have to imagine that many stab wounds. And she just willed it. She was not going to die there.
Former Monmouth County Assistant Prosecutor Lori Gerhardt says Donna Ongsiako was determined her daughter Kirsten would not come home to find her dead. She knew she had to get to her cell phone upstairs.
I don't remember my feet or my hands actually touching the stairs. The energy that it took for me to get up off the ground and up those stairs, I was definitely guided.
The amount of strength that goes into that is just unimaginable.
But the motivation was you.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe I was there, guiding her in spirit.
Once Donna made it upstairs, she faced a new challenge after peering out her bedroom window.
She had a car sitting right here?
Right, she had a car sitting right in this area.
I could still see the car was there, and I could see the car was on and he was in it. If I take my phone off the charger, it's gonna light up. He's gonna see the light.
Afraid her attacker would come back for her, Donna did her best to hide the light of the phone. Then, just getting it to work became the next hurdle.
My hands are covered in blood, my touch screen. I was trying to swipe and swipe, so I ended up having to wipe my hands off, wipe the phone off, wipe it down on the bed, and then I was able to do the touch screen and get through to 911.
My name is Donna Ongsiako. I just got stabbed really bad. Some kid just came in and stabbed me and he stole my car.
Okay. Just stand up on me, okay? Where did you get stabbed?
In the neck, blood is gushing out, and in the chest.
Detective Andrea Tazi says Donna's ability to place that call despite her injuries was amazing. But then Donna did something even more extraordinary. She gave a detailed description of her attacker.
Okay, do you know what he looked like?
Yeah, he was probably about 17. White, real skinny, curly hair. Blonde, dirty blonde hair. Backpack.
It was pretty chilling to listen to Donna and be able to hear her accurately talk about this is what happened, this is what he looks like,
I'm losing consciousness.
and then hear her fade out.
Donna? Donna? Hello, Donna? Donna?
Yes, ma'am. I think I just sat down for a minute.
Police and paramedics arrived less than 8 minutes after Donna dialed 911, but her attacker had already fled. Donna was rushed to Jersey Shore University Medical Center and into trauma surgery. It would be a few more hours before Kirsten arrived home from her party to a house surrounded by flashing lights.
I saw the caution tape and that her car was gone.
Police told Kirsten what happened to her mother.
You were deeply shaken.
Oh yeah, I remember at one point my knees buckled. They had the SUV, the undercover cop car, the trunk was open. So I was like, can I sit here? Because I feel like I'm gonna pass out.
As Kirsten was processing the news, an all-out manhunt had already begun for Donna's assailant. Detective Tazi says another 911 call had come in shortly before Donna's attack.
I was going to pick up my daughter, and there was a kid hitchhiking.
From a driver who saw someone walking along the road near Donna's house.
They saw a young man with a backpack and khaki pants. He was walking close to the fog line and kind of stepping into traffic, and she felt that he was kind of a hitchhiker.
He was on the northbound side, walking southbound, and I'm afraid he's going to get hit by a car. How old about? I'm going to say like 18, 19, 20, something like that.
She was concerned because she just thought that maybe he needed help in some way.
And was a car dispatched?
Yes. They didn't find him, though.
Still, the Good Samaritan driver had inadvertently given the investigation its first lead.
I felt that the hitchhiker was my person. It was too coincidental for that time of the night in that area for somebody to be walking, and then 15 minutes later, Donna's calling say that she was stabbed.
And there was about to be another tip, not long after Donna's 911 call, from a fast food restaurant 5 miles from her house.
They saw a subject walking through their drive-through, knocking on windows, carrying a knife, and it looked like it had blood on it.
Employees from the Taco Bell quickly called police.
You have any description of him? Yeah, he was wearing, like those army pants, and he had no shirt. He was white with really bushy hair, but it was long, like the skater type hair. How old was he? I don't know. He looked like he was 18.
Police rushed to the Taco Bell and started canvassing the nearby shopping center. They didn't find their suspect, but they did find something else.
So there had been a bolo put out on Donna's vehicle.
Be on the lookout.
Right. And in the process of looking for this person here, they found the car.
Donna's stolen car, this BMW, had been ditched behind a movie theater.
It was lights on and it was running. So it clearly was an abandoned vehicle.
Tazi says the car would become crucial.
There was blood all over it. And so we were hoping that we would get some kind of DNA evidence of our suspect.
Did you?
We did.
Sharon Sharp will never forget the dread she felt when she arrived at the hospital to see her friend Donna Ongsiako, only to be told she wasn't there.
I'm picturing the color draining from your face and the air leaving your lungs like...
Totally. No, this cannot be. There's no way. She has to be here.
Did you think maybe she had died?
Yes.
It turned out, with her attacker still on the loose, the hospital had admitted Donna under an alias to protect her. Sharon was allowed to see Donna the next day.
An intensive care room I've never seen before. It looked like an enlarged, massively enlarged cockpit wall, because there were tons of machines behind her, and she looked almost like a puppet.
Surgery was 7 hours, I believe.
Despite losing 3/4 of the blood in her body, trauma surgeons had saved Donna's life, but at a tremendous cost. You may find the pictures you're about to see disturbing.
I pretty much looked like a living cadaver. I had 37 stitches on my face and neck, 38 staples in my chest, 7 stitches in my hand, and now internally my sternum is wired shut.
And as for that final stab to Donna's chest just before her assailant left,
it missed my heart by the edge of a dime, is what I remember them telling me.
the edge of a dime.
When she talks about the margin that the knife missed her heart by?
Yeah, if she was any slouched over any more, that would have been it.
Kirsten says as soon as her mother was able to talk, she had one simple request.
I remember her saying, "All I smell is this blood in my hair. Can somebody please wash my hair?"
Sharon says they got permission, and then she and two of Donna's family members did their best to wash Donna's hair as she lay in her hospital bed.
We were determined to see if we can make her smile. So we turned it into a ridiculous idiot session with 3 of us, like a factory line. We laughed through our tears, and anytime anybody would get too serious, we would make it funny.
But her hair was far from Donna's biggest concern. She was sure her attacker would find her and finish the job.
She was convinced that he was in the hospital, and we kept telling her, "No, you're here under an alias."
I survived. I stood face to face with him. I could 100% positively identify him. He's coming back for me.
Detective Tazi says they were pretty sure the young man knocking on windows at the Taco Bell drive-thru shortly after Donna's attack was their suspect. Within 2 days, a customer who saw him met with a police sketch artist.
And was able to provide pretty great details on the person she saw that night.
Investigators then took the sketch to the hospital.
What did Donna say when she saw that sketch?
She said, yeah, it was incredibly accurate. She tweaked it a little bit. She said that, yes, that looks like the person who stabbed me.
His curly blonde hair, he was like a surfer kid or a skateboarder or something like that.
Former Assistant Prosecutor Lori Gerhardt says the sketch of the suspect was soon plastered all over Monmouth County and on law enforcement social media.
So people are obviously talking and trying to figure out, do we know him? Where is he from? Who is this kid? And it's scary because you like to have a sense of security in your community.
Investigators reviewed the cameras of stores in the shopping center near the Taco Bell to see if they'd get lucky and spot their suspect, hoping the more images they had, the more likely the chance of identifying him.
We were trying to go back and look at video from various businesses to see the description and really to put out the bolo, like this is who we're looking for.
Security cameras had captured the suspect once again.
The surveillance we got from the store over there was from the inside the store, but it was pointing outwards.
I see. And it definitely caught him.
Oh, yeah, you could see him walking.
As police kept looking for the suspect, Donna was turning a corner, at least physically. Amazingly, after just 4 days, Donna Ongsiako was released from the hospital. Sharon says that was all due to the training Donna had done prior to the attack.
Clearly, she's very physically fit. She couldn't have survived this if she wasn't.
It's an amazing thing you were out in 4 days. But as you leave the hospital, you are also walking back into a world where whoever did this to you is still out there.
Right. But also, I wasn't going back to the farm. I wasn't going back to my house. No, there was no way.
In fact, Donna would never step foot in her house again. She and Kirsten moved in with family living in New Jersey. Then, just 8 days after the attack, not long after the police sketch began circulating, Detective Tazi's phone rang.
I take the call, and the woman on the other end says that she's calling about the stabbing in Colts Neck. I said, okay. I said, how can I help you? And she said, I think my cousin, Brennan Doyle, may have something to do with that.
It was the first time Tazi had heard the name Brennan Doyle. He was just 16 years old. His cousin told Tazi word was going around her family that Brennan was involved in the Colts Neck stabbing. The cousin had seen Brennan just days prior to Donna's attack.
Between July 3rd and 6th, because he was up in Connecticut for her wedding with his family.
He had attended her wedding.
He attended her wedding, and she was able to provide us a picture of what he looked like during the time he was up there for the wedding.
The photo she sends is Brennan with long curly hair wearing camouflage shorts, looking very much like the kid in the sketch, and more importantly on the videotapes.
Brennan's resemblance to the sketch all around town was about to become even more important because of what the cousin told Detective Tazi happened a few days later.
She was staying at Brennan's family's lake house in New Hampshire as a wedding gift. And Brennan, his brother, and the mother showed up there unexpected.
Hang on. This woman is in Lake Winnipesaukee. She's on her honeymoon?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, there's Brennan, Brennan's mother, Brennan's brother, crashing her honeymoon?
Yes, and the dog.
But what was even more surprising was Brennan's appearance.
Brennan's hair was cut.
The next time she sees him, he's cut his hair.
Yes.
So that's a big red flag.
Yes.
Brennan Doyle's cousin told investigators that Brennan showed up just days after Donna's attack, hundreds of miles from home, with his hair suddenly cut short, similar to this. Like Donna, the Doyle family resided in Colts Neck. Former assistant prosecutor Lori Gerhardt.
We lived in a very nice house, 2 sons, a mom and a dad. The life of a typical Colts Neck teenager, it's a life of wealth, it's a life of privilege.
Doyle was a student athlete on wrestling and hockey teams. Detective Tazi started digging into his background.
He had never been arrested. There was never any charges filed against him prior to our investigation.
According to the prosecutor's records, police had been called to the Doyle house for what they referred to as family conflicts. The location of the home would turn out to be very important.
Where did Brennan live?
So if you make a right up here and you go up maybe a quarter of a mile on the left.
So that's close.
Yeah.
The teen and his family lived within walking distance of Donna's house, up the very road that driver had reported seeing someone she described as a young hitchhiker just prior to Donna's attack.
I'm afraid he's going to get hit by a car.
When does the Doyle family return to Colts Neck?
Later in July.
With Brennan and his family back in town, Tazi reached out to the family, saying investigators were canvassing the neighborhood.
What happened when you went to the house?
We spoke with Mrs. Doyle. She was nervous. Her voice was cracking, and
Did this raise an eyebrow for you?
it did. We asked if Brennan and his brother could come and look at the composite sketch, and if they had any idea who that person might be on the sketch.
Did Brennan come out?
He did.
Tazi says she wanted to see Brennan's hair to confirm what his cousin had told her, that it had been cut much shorter. It seemed the teen tried to stay a step ahead when he came out to greet the detective.
He was wearing a hat. He was wearing a baseball hat.
I think wearing a baseball cap was a calculated move.
It might have been, but it didn't work.
You could tell his hair was cut short.
Next, Tazi showed Brennan the police sketch of the suspect, the same one Donna helped tweak to look just like her attacker.
How did he react?
He looked away. He looked at it, looked away, and said, I don't know. I don't know. He was nervous and he was scared, and he got very quiet.
There is a reaction. Eyes are down, no eye contact, people are nervous. Mom starts redirecting the conversation.
Doyle's family and his attorney denied our request for an interview. We asked CBS News consultant, defense attorney Matt Troiano, to study the case file.
And I think that probably confirms what they believed going in.
Brennan's odd behavior and resemblance to the sketch and video evidence may have been striking, but with nothing else to go on yet, Tazi thanked the Doyles for their time and left.
Did you know that was your guy?
I was pretty confident that we were on the right track with him. But we also have a duty. We had other leads that were coming in, so we were doing a lot of follow-ups.
As investigators worked the case, Donna was struggling. Weeks after the attack, the reality of what had happened to her had taken hold.
I lost everything that night. I lost my home, had nowhere to go. I lost my car. They took it into evidence.
Donna, you lost more than half your blood.
Exactly. I lost a lot.
Donna says that's when, in addition to her physical recovery, she faced a new challenge.
Symptoms of PTSD started to show up. I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I don't care about anything. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm, every emotion under the sun at any minute. I felt like I was going crazy. I was always thinking, I don't know who this kid is, but he climbed through the window in that second that I fell asleep, and now he's hiding in the closet, kind of crazy thoughts.
Sharon Sharp says Donna's fear meant even friendly visits required a new protocol, including announcing her arrival every step of the way so as not to trigger Donna.
I'm gonna come around the hedges now, and I'm gonna enter the backyard. I'm gonna be touching the gate in 3, 2, 1. I would shake my keys first, which had bells on them. Say, it's me, Sharon, I'm coming.
The investigation lasted through the summer of 2013. Brennan Doyle remained the only likely suspect. Detective Tazi says investigators took the next step in September.
We got a warrant to obtain his DNA, his fingerprints, photographs of him, just things that are personal to him.
When the results came back,
there's a fingerprint match, then ultimately there's a DNA match.
Brennan Doyle's DNA was a spot-on match to unknown DNA found in Donna's car in a number of places.
11 different DNA samples and pieces of evidence found in that vehicle, and really, there's no reason why Brennan Doyle's DNA should be in this woman's vehicle. He's a stranger to her.
One more crucial piece of evidence was found in early October in the most unexpected spot.
Repairmen were servicing an air conditioning unit that was on the top of the strip mall. They found the knife on the roof right near the air conditioning unit.
A knife, looking weathered as though it had been there for months, found on a bowling alley roof in the very same shopping center where the Taco Bell was located and where Donna's car had been abandoned.
How important was the knife?
It ended up being very important because the knife was from a set. We determined that that knife matched another knife that we knew came from the Doyle household that had been taken months earlier.
Through a twist of timing and fate, the Colts Neck police already had another knife from the Doyle home. taken after police were called to the house a few weeks prior to Donna's attack, following an altercation between Brennan and his brother.
There's a knife that's apparently used by the younger brother in a threatening manner. Police are called, police take the knife, and the situation ends.
There was no charges or anything that came of it, but they secured the knife in their evidence vault. It was the same brand name, the same look. It was a silver knife.
It was from the same collection.
Correct. That was kind of the icing on the cake to get a search warrant. They had moved during the course of this investigation, so we got a search warrant for their new home.
The search of the new Doyle residence, also in Colts Neck, turned up the rest of the knife set matching the one found atop the shopping center. In late October 2013, Brennan Doyle was arrested.
What kinds of charges was he facing?
Serious ones: attempted murder, carjacking, weapons possession. These are the most serious of crimes that we have.
What do you make of the evidence against Brennan Doyle? Take a look at the complete investigation at 48hours.com.
Months after Donna's brush with death, her alleged attacker, Brennan Doyle, was in custody, facing 6 counts, including attempted murder and carjacking. He pleaded not guilty.
And you have to look at the seriousness of the offense.
The prosecution felt the crime warranted trying Doyle as an adult, even though he was 16 at the time.
And in juvenile court, Brennan is looking at 4 years maximum in a youth detention facility. In adult court, he's looking at up to 30 years.
A judge would rule in Assistant Prosecutor Gerhardt's favor, but there was a catch. Doyle would now be entitled to post bail, set at $760,000, which he did.
When you heard he was out, did all of the fear come rushing back?
It wasn't so much fear as it was anger that he was even allowed to be bailed out.
The thought of running into Doyle terrified Kirsten. She says he even haunted her dreams.
I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. I had no idea until I was like falling asleep and all I see is his face.
As prosecutors developed their case, the details of what happened that horrific night began to emerge.
What does Brennan Doyle say happened the night of July 6th, heading into the morning of July 7th, 2013?
Mushrooms. He says he was under the influence of hallucinogenic mushrooms.
According to investigative reports he examined, Matt Troiano says that on the night of Donna's attack, Doyle claimed he was losing touch with reality and had gotten into a fight with his father.
He has a knife in his hand, Dad kicks him out, and he kind of loses his mind, makes bad decisions.
Police thought it was likely that Doyle, who lived a short distance away, approached Donna's home looking to steal her car.
I don't know if his intent was to kill Donna. Certainly when he started stabbing her, that became his intent.
To me, what he's doing is he's getting rid of the witness.
Gerhardt believes Doyle did not act like someone incapacitated by drugs. Doyle drove 5 miles to that shopping center after leaving Donna's house.
This kid manages to ditch a knife. He abandons the car, and that's not a kid who's so high on mushrooms he doesn't know what he's doing.
Troiano says while a lot of the evidence against Brennan Doyle was strong, the knife, the security camera videos, one thing put this case over the top.
What is going to seal the fate of this boy, this kid, is that there's DNA in her vehicle that links to him. It's indefensible.
But as it turned out, there would be no need for a defense. In August of 2015, Brennan Doyle agreed to a plea deal. In return, the prosecution dropped all but the 2 most serious charges: carjacking and attempted murder.
It was very important for me that he admit his guilt. If he took the plea, he would have to confess his guilt to the court.
In October 2015, Brennan Doyle, now 18 years old, appeared in Monmouth County Superior Court for sentencing. Donna, who'd attended every court appearance, was there to face him one last time.
Even though I felt overpowered by fear, I wanted him to see me as strong and as a survivor.
It was an emotional day for Kirsten, there to support her mother.
When you would look at him in court, what do you remember feeling?
Anger. Just very angry. Sorry.
The drugs turned me into a monster that night.
Doyle was permitted to address the court.
I pray and hope her wounds will lessen and she will recover eventually. I am asking you to forgive me. Going to prison will be the hardest thing I will ever have to face in my life. I'm afraid.
Brennan Doyle was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. The law requires him to serve at least 85% of that time.
Justice has to be done on both sides, and we have to be sensitive to that. We have a 16-year-old kid who, for the most part, had absolutely no prior history. The court has a balancing act to do.
Did it feel like justice?
It did not.
What would have felt like justice to you?
More like 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, if not longer.
Even with Doyle off the streets, Donna was still struggling. She had found PTSD and domestic violence support groups, but says there were none for victims of random attacks. So in 2015, she decided to create her own, Survivors of Violent Crimes.
The reason we took to the support group was to help each other cope.
Donna connected with fellow survivors, Tiffany Ott and Dana Richards. Together, they held meetings and felt gratified they could help when more survivors joined.
They're finding relief in knowing that they're not alone.
But Donna says her work isn't done. Her future plans include helping victims connect with trauma therapists and offering self-defense classes. As she grows her support group, she's also educating others. She travels to prisons, meeting with inmates, and addresses police cadets so they can understand the victim's point of view.
I got up. I made it up the stairs to my bedroom where my cell phone was, but I got through to 911.
She survives, and she's building a life. How could anyone not applaud that?
Donna says the physical scars that remain are a reminder of the surgeons who saved her life.
This is artwork. They're beautiful artwork. You could either get sucked into the darkness or you just keep going. I did what I had to do to be here today and go another day.
A mother disappears. Evidence points to homicide.
And she's nowhere to be found.
The suspect is gone too, leading U.S. Marshals on a relentless manhunt.
He was using the railways to move around, hopping trains.
The chase is on.
Justice is coming.
48 Hours, next on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Before we begin, just a trigger warning. The following episode does include mentions of graphic physical violence.
I survived a violent home invasion. After everything was said and done, I lost in total close to 3/4 of the blood in my body. There's no earthly reason why I'm alive. None. There is none.
As you heard, that is Donna Ongsiako, who miraculously survived a random attack in her Colts Neck, New Jersey home back in the early morning hours of July 7th, 2013. Donna lived with her 21-year-old daughter, but she was home alone that night And after opening her front door to let her cat back in the house, Donna then encountered an intruder attempting to cut through the screen of the window by her front door. He proceeded to stab her multiple times on her face and in her chest before leaving with her purse and her car keys. As Donna lay on the floor bleeding, she somehow found the strength to crawl upstairs where her cell phone was, and she called 911 while her attacker then escaped in her car.
Okay. Just stand up on me, okay? Where did you get stabbed?
In the neck, blood is gushing out, and in the chest.
Okay,
I can
stand
feel
up.
my heart. I'm pouring, gushing blood.
Okay.
Then, before briefly losing consciousness, she was able to describe her attacker in great detail.
He was probably about 17, white, real skinny, curly hair, blonde, dirty blonde hair, a little bit long in a backpack. I'm losing consciousness.
Okay, so stay with me, okay?
Yeah, I could feel the blood is just it's like water.
After paramedics arrived, Donna then was rushed to the hospital, and as you heard her say, she lost close to 3/4 of the blood in her body. But thanks to Donna's detailed description of her attacker and additional tips and DNA evidence, police identified 16-year-old Brennan Doyle as a suspect. He was arrested nearly 4 months after stabbing Donna. And Doyle claimed he was under the influence at the time of magic mushrooms. In 2015, Doyle pleaded guilty to attempted murder and carjacking, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And while Doyle is in prison, Donna is still struggling to recover from the trauma of her attack. I'm Natalie Morales of 48 Hours, and this is It Could Have Been Me. Welcome, Donna. It is so good to have you here with us, and thank you so much for being willing to share your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
I know what you went through was so traumatic, physically, emotionally. How are you doing today?
Physically, all of my injuries have healed. I have some, nerve damage, pins and needles in my left arm. But other than that, physically, I'm okay. Psychologically, I'm still working on that. I can go places by myself now, but do I like being in the dark, in the night, by myself? No, still it is difficult for me.
Your physical scars have healed so beautifully as well. You don't see them as much anymore, but as you said, the emotional trauma is still something that you live with, and I know that has to be so difficult to go through, as you said, the nighttime and the darkness, because that's when the attack happened. You've moved out of that house, though, and I know that area of New Jersey. I lived in New Jersey for many, many years. It's a beautiful, peaceful area, horse country. Something like this, though, you never expect something like this to happen in Colts Neck, New Jersey, right?
No, never. I felt very safe there. Never in my wildest nightmares would I would think this would happen there.
Take me back to that night. Your daughter, Kirsten, she was out at a party. You nodded off, but then you went to open the door to let your cat back in. What happened then?
Right. So when I opened the door, I saw a kid standing on the porch. That's what I zoned in on. And then like a millisecond later, I saw the knife that he had, and he was cutting into the screen and the window. And my response kicked into, oh, I got to shut this door, So as I was shutting the door, he charged at the door, and the knife, it stuck through just a tiny little opening before I could actually shut the door. And it cut my finger, the tip of my finger. And I pulled my hand off the door. That was the most painful moment, was that knife cutting the tip of my finger.
Oof.
Because my body hadn't shut down yet. At that point, it was just sliced into my hand. So when I pulled my hand off the door, he pushed the door in and was face to face with me in my kitchen. I could not think far enough ahead to say he's going to cut me with that knife. But sure enough, he was standing just straight in front of me, and he just started slashing me. My face, you could see this part here, but it actually goes all the way back here. So he just took the knife and, slashed that way. And I could not process again that he would actually cut me. So I'm holding my face like this, and he's slashing my neck. And then so now I'm like, oh, like what's happening? And he stabbed me straight into my chest. And still, even with the slashes and the stabs, I couldn't process that he was actually like another stab was going to come, another slash was going to come. Like I couldn't process that.
Gosh, it is unreal hearing you describe all of this, and it's still so clear as day to you in your memory. I can see that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm sure that's so hard to relive that moment, the pain you were feeling in that moment. And as I understand, this is a young man that you'd never seen him before. It's not somebody you recognized, right?
Right. No, totally random.
You saw, though, he seemed to be young. You got a good feel for what he looked like. I mean, you were staring at him as he's doing this to you. You wouldn't take your eyes off him.
Absolutely. Correct. Yep. Without a doubt.
So he's attacking you multiple times. He stabbed you at this point. In that time, what's going through your head? Are your survival instincts kicking in?
Yes, I started to think, I have to get that knife. Like I have to get it out of his hands. So as I was backing away from him, I tried to grab the knife from him. You don't think in my head, I'm going to grab that knife and I'm going to get it away from him. But it literally just cut my hand open. I ended up on the floor, and he came over to me on the floor. He asked me for my car keys and for a lighter. So I directed him to my purse, and he went through my purse and got what he needed.
And I know that you were wanting to figure out, get to your cell phone, right? That was part of the whole thinking at that moment.
Yeah, my cell phone was upstairs.
Once he left with the car keys, the lighter, that was your opportunity. You had to get upstairs. How'd you do that? I mean, in the condition you were in.
I have no idea. I always say that there was definitely divine intervention that helped me get up the stairs. And I feel like I floated up those stairs and to my phone.
Almost like an out-of-body experience, really.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know part of your motivation was your daughter. She was out, but you knew she would come back. You knew she would find you.
I could just imagine Kirsten coming in, walking in through that door and finding me laying there. And that couldn't happen. That just wasn't something I was prepared to let happen.
You got to your phone, yet incredibly, you were still with it enough to look outside and notice that your attacker was still there in the car. So you had to be really careful once you got your phone, right? What did you do?
Yes, I picked up my phone and it was still on the attached to the cord, and I knew that if I unplugged the cord from it, it was going to light up, and he would see like that light in the dark, and I was so terrified that he was going to see that and he was going to come back in, and so I kind of just slunk down to the floor with it and tried to be as careful as I could. And it was hard just trying to swipe on the phone just to unlock it because I had so much blood on my hands. Finally, I just wiped it off on the side of the bed and was able to dial 911.
Do you remember that call at all now?
I remember feeling so panicked, just desperate and trying to get all of the right information out, all the right words out. After the criminal trial was done, I went back to the prosecutor's office and I asked him if I could hear my 911 call because I wanted to make sure, like, did I actually speak clearly? Did I actually give them all this information like they said I did? And that was really empowering for me to go back years later and hear that recording.
You give me goosebumps, just imagining you hearing that for the first time after having gone through what you went through. You made it out of that house, incredible. And then you had to undergo 7 hours of surgery. When you were in the hospital, is it true that you were worried that your attacker might come back for you?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. in every scary movie that you see, or every, type of slasher movie like that, you see the killer comes back dressed as a doctor, dressed as a nurse, or they slip in and, as an orderly or something like that. But I kept telling him, like, is there a guard out, asking them, is there a guard outside my door? And they kept trying to assure me that it was a secure floor. I was under an alias. Nobody was getting on this floor into my room unless they knew my alias. Yeah, absolutely terrified.
Your alias was Sarah Reese.
Yeah, it was shocking, actually, to see that on my wristband.
I know you described feeling like you almost lost your identity because the attack, it's like it took so much away from you.
I completely do not identify with who I was pre-attack. I feel like there is not a stitch of me left from, before the attack.
You're a different person now.
Totally different person, and I'm still trying to figure out who that is.
It's obviously a work in progress, but you're so strong, and you're such a survivor. I know your friend Sharon Sharp was really important to helping you go through your recovery. She described seeing you in the hospital those very first few days, and the stab wounds, and how much blood even was in your hair at that moment. And she talked about that. Let's take a listen here.
Her beautiful long hair was just caked. I mean, caked. It was almost like a thing you could pick up in blood. And all she'd say was, "I want my hair washed. I want my hair washed." Everybody could smell it. You couldn't not smell it. It was horrible. It was horrible.
And I love that in that moment, your friends saw what you needed and they took action. They washed your hair. They tried to be strong for you when you needed that.
The washing of the blood out of my hair, that for me was it was almost ceremonial. That was a lingering ick factor for me, was that smell of blood. I just couldn't shake it.
Well, it was just 4 days later that you were able to leave the hospital. And I mean, I think you had something like 37 stitches, am I right? And 38 staples throughout your body.
Yeah. I think they would have kept me there longer, but every day I was like, I'm ready to go. I have to leave. I did not feel safe there at all.
And of course, you didn't feel safe going back to the house, so you didn't go back there. Where did you end up going?
Yeah, so I ended up going back to my parents' house. So it was my mother and my father, and a brother that lived there, and my sister lived there at the time with her 3 children. So there was no room at the inn for me. So they ended up just kind of putting me in my niece's room. It was chaos.
Well, and I know you were concerned because your attacker was still out there, and it would take 4 months before 16-year-old Brennan Doyle was then arrested. And, your attacker, we said he was young. What was your reaction, though, when you heard? I mean, he was just 16 years old.
I mean, I stood face to face with him, so I saw him, and I knew he was young. I didn't realize he was that young. And kind of shocked because I was in really good shape physically, and if you said a 16-year-old was going to, force their way into your house and attack you, I would have said absolutely not. That is not going to happen. I was in the best shape of my life. There was no way that was going to happen. But fight, flight, or freeze, and I froze.
Yeah. He was then charged as an adult. When you heard what Brennan Doyle was alleging, he said it was magic mushrooms that possessed him to do what he did to you. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I thought that was just a cop-out. He seemed very present and very sure of what he was doing. So I don't buy the whole hallucinogenic story.
Did you see him in court?
Yes. I went to every single court appearance. There were throughout the 2 years between the attack and then the actual trial in 2015. I went to every single appearance, even if it was just like a 10-minute, like, this is what's happening thing, because I wanted him to see me. I wanted him to know that I was alive and and I was showing up, you know.
And he pleaded guilty to attempted murder and carjacking. That was in 2015, then sentenced to 15 years in prison. What was your reaction when you heard that sentence?
If we were to go to trial, I was told that he can maintain his innocence, and there would be no guarantee of him, of the amount of time that he would get. If we went to trial, he could get 4 years, he could get, 7 years, what have you. But if he takes a plea deal, they told me he has to admit his guilt to the court. So when they said he's going to take a plea deal for 15 years, I wanted that as opposed to taking a chance that he could get 4 years and maintain his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a civil award after the criminal trial where I was awarded $5 million. I have not seen any money from that.
He could be coming out soon, in a couple of years. Have you come to the terms with the fact that he might be released?
I have not come to terms with that. I have to work on that. I feel like he's not going to come out and come after me, but, you never know. There's that little part of me that you're not going to convince that he doesn't want to hurt or harm me.
It's hard to even ask the question, but what does closure look like for you? I mean, especially when you talk about this was such a random act of violence.
Yeah. Hindsight is 20/20. So looking back on how I came out of the hospital and everything was so chaotic and everybody was so traumatized, nobody knew what to do. Looking back now, had I been received into an environment that had created a safe environment for me, that is what I needed. Like I needed that foundation. I still need it, the foundation of safety. I have to figure out, can I live in a standalone house by myself?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I have to always live in an apartment with other people around, or a condo, or, something with other people around, And
I think what you're doing now is so remarkable because you're trying to help people understand what it means to be a victim of a random attack and the emotions, the post-traumatic stress that goes along with all of that when it comes to healing.
Yeah. First of all, I didn't think, maybe the first couple of days when I was out of the hospital, I didn't think that I had post-traumatic stress. Like I was just like, this was a violent, horrible thing. And I'm going to calm down and things will be okay. I followed the steps of like what I was supposed to do, follow doctor's orders and things like that. It wasn't until things started happening to me that it really set in, like the nightmares and the not sleeping, and I couldn't be around people, and the isolating, and the emotions up and down. Like I could be sitting here just like this, and all of a sudden I wouldn't be crying, but tears would be pouring out of me. I had all this trauma inside me, and it had to be released somehow, right?
And Donna, what are you doing now to help, get through this? I mean, it seems like it's very emotionally traumatic still to this day.
Yes. So I still am in therapy. I was on anti-anxiety medications. I was on medication, whatever the doctors thought that I should be on. I followed their protocol. I also started to do yoga and meditation and aromatherapy, anything calming, mind, body, soul type calming things.
To help you heal, though, I know that you created a support group specifically focused on victims of random attacks. Why was that important to you?
Nobody could put together that random act. Nobody could put together that I was alone in the night, in the dark, and barely escaped death. I knew I needed to talk to somebody else and hear their experience. I guess more for hope, right? I want to hear from somebody who got to the other side of this, who survived it and is doing well and is thriving and has all these ways of coping. So I just wanted, with the support group, I wanted to be able to be a safe place for somebody else to tell their story, hold space for somebody else.
I heard you saying that you have the same job and that you had before the attack, that they've been very supportive and helpful.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for pointing that out, because having my job to go back to and having a purpose to get up and get out of bed and go to work every day, that was so important. It's the one thing that has not changed since the attack. It's the one constant.
And what do you want people to know about victims of random attacks? How do we talk to people who've gone through what you've gone through in a way that doesn't also, become triggering?
I think you really have to meet people where they are. And in hearing somebody talk about whatever they're experiencing or whatever they're going through, you don't have to fix it. You don't have to offer advice. Just listen, just let them release that without judgment.
I know before the attack, you competed in Tough Mudders, and you, as you said, you were in the best shape of your life back then. I think, though, what got you through this is you're the toughest mother. I'm amazed, again, how you got up those stairs, you called 911, you gave that description, and it really all came from a place of love, knowing that you needed to protect your daughter. How are you and Kirsten doing today?
Yeah, she's doing well. She's building a life of her own with her husband. There's still that, there's like a wedge there from the attack. I feel like there's always something in my everyday life that relates to the attack or something from the attack. And I feel like I don't want to put that on her, because that then causes her to think about it. And then, so there's a wedge there where I kind of try to protect her from my stuff, and she kind of tries to protect me from any of her stuff. And it's not the healthiest thing, but we're going to get through it.
I know you will. And I know it has to be so hard. I mean, you both have been through so much. So it's understandable how, in trying to protect one another, you end up sometimes putting, blocks in the way, in the path of allowing you to have, a really open and honest conversation. But you'll get there. You'll get there, because the work you're doing is amazing. And sharing your story, helping others is helping you. And I can see that. So Donna, you're incredible. And it's such a privilege to get to know you. And I know it wasn't easy having a conversation again about what happened to you, but we so appreciate you sharing it, because perhaps in helping us understand how best to talk to victims of random attacks, you're creating an opportunity as well to let us just understand people going through traumatic experiences as a whole.
Thank you so much.
We want to thank you for listening to It Could Have Been Me. I'm Natalie Morales. And you can always find your latest podcast in the 48 Hours podcast feed. It's free on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.